Everybody was looking forward to the unstoppable force versus the immovable object.
He's got a counter move.
Edey with the left hand.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Gillis a good passer and pick and pop.
Smith upstairs. Jungle Jam, Zach Edey.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
UConn's got to get moving on the offensive end. Nice steal here. Smith. Nice pass.
Diarra lays it in.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Diarra, feed it.
Nice pass.
Turn, Diarra, blocked by Edey.
A body block. Nice look.
Oh, perfect pass. Lawyer, denied. It's Caravan.
What a hustle play.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Handoff, Newton on the move. Drive and kick. Caravan, contact, no call. Spencer penetrates and the scoop goes. Camtastic.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Caravan using the Klingon screen. Feed it.
Replace.
Castle. Got a three.
They do that as well as anybody in the country.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
365 Sports on this Tuesday afternoon after the eclipse, the solar eclipse yesterday. A deluge of water, rain, Mother Nature today in a different way. Hope you stayed dry wherever you might be in this Central Texas area, or those of you watching us from throughout the country. We appreciate your time every day. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak, and this will take you up until 6 o'clock. Guys, we'll get to UConn because, my God, they deserve it. But the John Calipari message, a video to the fans at Kentucky, Big Blue Nation, that it feels like they need a new voice. He probably needs to refresh himself. He is gone. We're going to get into the coaching search here in a moment, but still kind of hard to imagine. But he had been there 15 years. That's a long stretch for pretty much anybody.
Yeah, it is, especially, when coaches make as much as they do now, and, how, ineffective he's been at, finishing the job as the coach. And some of those, things may be fair or not fair, but he was getting paid a lot of money at Kentucky to get them into the Final Four, and that hasn't happened in a very long time. So, yeah, maybe he needs a fresh spot and a fresh voice and all that. So, I don't know.
I still thought that this would turn around in a boomerang style, that somehow or another it would not happen. I'm happy for Arkansas, because Eric Musselman was a pretty good coach despite this year, but I'm glad it's worked out for the Arkansas Razorbacks fans. They're a great basketball fan base too.
Yeah, I think it's just nice to have some finality to at least one part of this. No more speculating like the last 24 hours over whether he's actually leaving or not. Now we know for a fact he's leaving. No more speculation about what he's trying to do behind the scenes. I saw, and man, it's so hard to sort through what's what. I mean, nowadays it's just so unchecked on what information is clear, so you really have to be careful as usual. But I just saw so many different things flying about it, and so I don't even know what's true as far as what he was trying to work behind the scenes with his deal. The last thing that I saw was that apparently he had gone to Mitch Barnhart in Kentucky and said, like, hey, here's the offer that I've got, match it.
That's from a longtime Kentucky broadcaster.
Yeah, so that's the last thing that I had seen, and then basically Kentucky and Mitch Barnhart said, no, see ya, and he's off to Arkansas, and it's official now with that video being his goodbye letter to Big Blue Nation. So at least we know that part of it is official now, and we can move on from the, oh, shoot, has he got 1 foot in and he's about to take it back out and stay at Kentucky because we haven't heard anything. Now we know the deal there, and a massive coaching search starts. But, yeah, it's a great hire by Arkansas. I mean, the clear thing here is he was facing a lot of pressure moving forward because they've not been as successful as they should have been, given all of the resources, given the head coach, given the players, given the backing. And he saw the clock ticking or the seat warming and thought, hey, I'll just reset entirely. Still in the SEC, can bring players at will because of the transfer portal, and I'll just go set it back to zero and go sit on down in the nice, cool seat that's going to have a lot of pressure attached to it as well, but not nearly what he would have had in Lexington this year. No. So, I mean, it's a smart move on his part, and he's none the worse for wear. And Kentucky will be fine, but, you know, like we said, there's a big coaching search coming up. I
just saw this, and there's more than one handful. We'll have, by the way, today at 4, Wes Moore, who's the one that popped the story on Sunday afternoon about Calipari in Arkansas. He's out of Little Rock, Fox 16, and also the Buzz radio station in Little Rock. He'll join us today at 4 o'clock. A lot of reporters now saying that he will not be officially announced until tomorrow morning. Introductory press conference sometime tomorrow evening at the Bud Walton Arena. And Arkansas fans are like, what the hell? He's already done a video that he's moving on. And I don't know if it's a legal thing or if something that has to go through the Board of Regents. Juracek, who obviously did a great job from Musselman to now Calipari, has not put anything out there. But that is tomorrow. Today's day is about Calipari leaving Kentucky, but so was yesterday and even a lot on Sunday. So Nate Oates, his name was brought up as a possible candidate. He put out a note yesterday, fully committed to this team. Talked about the university, talked about Alabama, wants to win its first national championship in men's basketball. Despite despite any rumors to the contrary, rest assured, I will continue the pursuit as your head coach. So, and roll tide. Craig, how do you say it?
Roll tide.
Roll tide. Now, also, Greg Byrne, the AD at Alabama, then followed up with a tweet discussing and making sure that Alabama's fans understood NIL. And by the way, that can help too as they now move on after their great run this year. That's from our good friend Pat Smith. So then I asked this question amongst myself. So if Nate Oates is putting out a statement, last night after winning back-to-back national titles, Dan Hurley made it clear.
I mean, Nate Oates, I just want to say, brilliant on the part of Alabama. Yeah. Was he even going to be the guy? Yeah. Was he the top 5 candidate? Was he a top 10 candidate? I'm sure he was high up on the list, but I'm just saying, brilliant on Alabama's part to go ahead and say, no, he's going to turn down Kentucky and turn down Kentucky to stay here at Alabama and build it here. And I just think that was a good play on the part of the Tide to present it like that.
And Dan Hurley made it clear last night that they have the resources at UConn to continue to do what they do every March and April after winning their 6th national title. We'll get to some more of the details on that. So then I said, so what about Scott Drew's name that's out there? We've heard it. It's been out there. A lot of national writers has put his name out there. We had Ashley Hodge to discuss it yesterday. So I asked somebody at Baylor administration about the concerns because it is Kentucky. I think, sure, Kentucky is like Alabama football. If you've got a coach who is really good at any place that's not quite the top 1% place, then you're concerned. So then I asked, okay, what about a statement? I love this response. I think on the statement thing, I think there's a lot more reason for guys who have changed jobs every 3 or 4 years to put out statements that they're not going compared to a guy that's been here or in the same job for 21 years.
Yeah, I do think it's funny how all these things happen now. I'm not going to credit him completely with this, but Dan Lanning in Oregon, when he got out in front of that Alabama thing, and then Alabama kind of stealing that same deal or using that same tactic with Nate Oates. I'm not involved in this. And then Mitch Barnhart, I'm sure he's been thinking about it, but he might be thinking well, yeah, I know you're not because I wasn't going to call you, but all right. I mean, thanks for making it easier on me to not have to answer, hey, what did you ever call Nate Oates? I mean, you take yourself out of that. But, yeah, the Kentucky search is going to be.
He said they're going to find somebody to continue or move the tradition forward. He did put out a quote about that earlier today.
And it's going to be very, very interesting who comes out of the woodwork that wants it or who they go after that. Maybe you wouldn't publicly say that they were looking for it, but, and again, right now, there's a Vegas sports book that is giving 1-to-1 odds on Scott Drew. I think that's a little bit too too generous or too sure of a thing. Now that's not to say it's impossible, but 1-1 is kind of
1-1 compared to everybody else is a heavy favorite.
Yeah.
And Vegas does that for betting. They also usually know some things. I continue to be told that Baylor knows what's going on. Of course, they're not dumb, but that they feel pretty good about Scott Drew. They feel good about Scott Drew staying where he is in Waco.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the whole not putting out a statement thing. If he did that, he would have already had to have put one out a couple weeks ago with the Louisville job, and maybe even another one this offseason. I don't even recall now what all jobs have been open, but at least one 2 weeks ago. We would have seen a graphic.
Could have, Arkansas before this even
put
happened,
out a graphic
or
for
USC
Arkansas,
or whoever.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, how many times are you going to do that? And so I do think that if you were going to start that trend, this would be the job to do it, though.
Mm-hmm.
If you're Scott Drew, if you really want to calm people's fears, then this would be the situation, because this is the first time I think you actually feel threatened, honestly. Louisville never appeared to be much of a threat. All due respect to their tradition and history, that's what they were actually banking on being the pull for him. And I'm sure a little bump in NIL maybe, or this or that they felt like was a pull for Scott Drew to leave the gig that he has here. But I don't think any of us felt that it was ever that serious. And I said time and time again, sure, I could see him leaving if he just wants to do something different. But beyond that reason, there is no reason for him to take the Louisville job over the Baylor job. The Kentucky job, that's a little bit different, guys. That is Alabama football.
Well, that's what that's
what I was saying yesterday. And so that is different. That is a real deal, big-time threat. And that is one that I think you have to take very seriously and really acknowledge and think about being the one that could pull him away potentially. So I think everybody's on board that that's the case, and now just waiting with bated breath, hopefully not holding their breath too tight because we don't know how long this is going to take. But I based on Mitch Barnhart's response of okay, see ya, it seems like they've already got far down the road with whoever they think they're probably going to get. Now, they might still have a choice of folks, but it doesn't sound like they're concerned about getting turned down by many people based on okay, see you, Cal. We need a fresh start. You need a fresh start. We'll see you at the crossroads. So that was not revealing, but just interesting to me of how sure they were about moving on. And I assumed that to be feeling pretty good about who they're going to land or where they are in that whole process. So, yeah, I mean, Scott Drew's front and center. Every person attached to basketball who was at the game last night says he's the name that's being bandied about the most. Well, after obviously Dan Hurley saying I'm not going to be the guy, and Nate Oates saying he's not going to be the guy. Again, that was just a brilliant PR tactic by him in Alabama, because we don't know how realistic that would have been. Hurley, we can say yeah, of course they'd be interested in Dan Hurley.
Yeah.
He's only won the last 2 national titles, so that one for sure. But yeah, I mean it's a very interesting time now, because this does feel different than the other several jobs that have popped open over the years that Scott Drew's been rumored to be involved with. I still lean towards him staying at Baylor, but I'm very aware that this could go a different route because of the job that we're talking. So I think you just got to be prepared for every instance here and not be too confident this is just going to be the same old thing where eventually he's just back in Waco.
Well, the biggest difference between Louisville and Kentucky is that Louisville is at the bottom and Kentucky is inexplicably in the middle, or towards the lower end of the top, in that they're getting recruits that other coaches would crawl across hot coals, broken glass, in a hurricane, through a tornado to get to. And John Calipari's getting those guys. He's getting the guys who are NBA guys all the time, and then hitting a wall in the tournament. So Kentucky's issues are minor compared to Louisville's. Kentucky's issues are, how do we get all these great players to win a couple more games for us every year, as opposed to Louisville is, how do we get great players again? There's a chasm in that, which makes the two jobs very different when it comes to any candidate, particularly Scott Drew's view, is that Louisville looks at him as he did this great rebuild job in Waco, and man, wouldn't it be great if you could do that again, given we have way more tradition than Baylor did when he got there. But Kentucky looks at it as, well, he did this great rebuild job in Waco, and here we don't even really need a rebuild. We just need, some new plumbing in the bathrooms and some paint on the walls, and we'll be fine.
Yep. And by the way, Kentucky's a job, if any coach got the offer and left to go to Kentucky for football like Alabama. Like, remember now, Steve Sarkisian's name was brought up, but he's at Texas, which would be like right there in that same mix of 3 to 5 schools in football, and was not going to leave Texas. But that doesn't mean that Alabama wasn't going to at least contact him and check him out because of the familiarity. Kentucky is Kentucky, as the quote said, that Kentucky in basketball is like Alabama in football. So there we are with that, and we'll just see how things work out over the next few hours, because I would think that this would not be something that would drag on too long, because it affects the programs of coaches whose names are being brought up, and also the fact that the Kentucky needs to act quickly to move on to the next era of their great basketball tradition.
Yeah, I mean, you want to get to work, so I would think that we're obviously all expecting this to be done before the end of the week. It's late Tuesday, so that gives us a couple of days for it to get done, and I would imagine it won't drag on much longer than that. Kentucky, like I said with the Mitch Barnhart statement, doesn't seem to be too worried about who might be out there for them to go catch, and so I think that also adds to the likelihood that this won't be a very long, drawn-out process. So, yeah, it's a situation where you just got to be a little bit patient from all sides, but certainly the folks around here are a little bit nervous, more nervous than they've been for any of these other openings, because this is like the legit threat. And I think maybe somebody said it yesterday, maybe even me, about like this is the one job. No, North Carolina, I think you would also throw in there. Kansas is a job you'd always throw in there. Duke, maybe you throw in there as well. UConn. And those are about the group, right? I mean, would you say it's about the group that you say are that top shelf tier?
There's always one or two here and there, yeah.
Right,
yeah,
that float in and out. But those are kind of like the permanents. And so those jobs are all kind of similar. But Kentucky, if you were to rank them, is probably right there at the very top of that list. And so that's the big bad draw in all of college basketball. So, yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how quickly this moves and who the end candidate is and what we're talking about after that decision's made.
I got a question for you. And you think Mack Rhoades, it's a compliment that even football coaches, I mean, when Aranda had the great run in 2021, remember how hot that name was? And, of course, Rule was always kind of looking around, and his name was there. And even like we mentioned this, even Bryles with Texas Tech and UT. Kim Mulkey goes to LSU, and here's Scott Drew's name, Louisville, Kentucky. Yeah, for a school that's a small private school, they sure seem to have coaches that a lot of people want. And it almost seems like we're almost numb to it as someone that covers the program. If he leaves, he was to leave. I'd hate that, because I enjoy working the program, as far as also having him on the show, enjoy him as a person. But isn't it interesting that it seemed like about every 3 to 5 or 6 months, there's somebody else on the Baylor staff that people are interested in, and that doesn't even include the assistant coaches that move on elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite across the board, but it has been regular with the last couple of football coaches. I mean, Matt Rule was kind of flirting from day one almost. It felt like you were constantly having to put out the fires associated with who he was rumored to be joining next, whether it was the NFL or college football. But that was a compliment, although that turned to be a big negative by the end of it, because it was like, we want to buy into you, dude. We're wanting to do everything we can to help you, but you are not letting it be known if you're even going to be here for that. And I think that really ruined the relationship by the end. I don't know about y'all. I just think that there was too much of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, so that they couldn't really fully embrace Matt Rule. But it was still a blow when he left, because you were just hoping that like he was going to be the guy to stick around. I mean, Bryles, that's toxic now to the name, but at the time he was the most innovative and exciting brand of football, or the leader behind the most exciting brand of football in America there for a little while. And so he obviously never came close to the amount of attention he probably was going to receive ultimately. I mean, those SEC jobs were going to come calling for him had things not changed.
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, they've made some good football hires. Dave Aranda was obviously very hotly talked about after they won the Big 12 championship. That's cooled off in the last couple seasons because they've struggled. But, yeah, Mulkey with LSU, and who knows how many other programs contacted her, Drew over the years. So they've made some good hires, and others have wanted to come and poach those. I guess you take that as a compliment, but also at the same time, you just don't want to be the feeder system for everybody. And that's where I think in this day and age you start to worry a little bit is, you didn't have to necessarily be that by losing a coach. You just lost them to a bigger school. But now it's not that you're just losing a bigger school. You're losing them because of the conference that you're in or the money that's being involved with NIL and just these things that are sort of out of your control. And as a smaller school, you don't have just a button you can go push to turn on the money train and combat all of that. So that's the part that would be concerning to me from a smaller school, private Christian Baylor perspective, is that it's not as simple as it once was in the grand scheme of things. There's a lot of other plates in the air nowadays that I don't know that work in their favor at all, unless Scott Drew decides that Baylor's the place because of that uniqueness, because of the Christian mission, being very public about that, because it's more small town and it's home and it's where he's known for 20 years. That could ultimately work in their favor with Scott Drew. I just don't know how much it's going to work in their favor for the years to come with, various jobs if Aranda were to get hot again or Nikki Collin or whoever.
All right, so last night, UConn, they're red hot. Scott Drew's name is hot, and obviously right now I even saw Ashley posted something in the premium section and about how he is the leading candidate or at least top target for Kentucky. And he probably should be. Again, there's probably 2 or 3 other names. There's maybe a name that we don't know much about, but I can't imagine he wouldn't be. And we've brought up the relationship. Mitch Barnhart, the AD, was the guy in charge of the tournament in 21 when Baylor made the run to win the national title against Gonzaga. And they were all bunkered up together inside for about a month together following the start of the tournament in mid-March to the championship game. But how about what UConn is doing? So here is UConn basketball. 6th national title, back-to-back years. Here are the margins of victory. This is crazy. There wasn't like even a team that hit a 3 at the end of the buzzer to make it a 9-point game. Every single game. That doesn't mean there weren't some tests in there. They have beaten people to a pulp. The closest score was Miami a year ago, a 13-point win in the semifinals.
And Purdue, what's weird about that game? If I'm Purdue, I go into half feeling good, only
36-30, yeah.
Down 6. But then if I'm UConn, I feel good knowing that we're only 2 scores away from double digits, which is what our whole thing is. And boom, boom, they got it before, I think before I even turned around. I went from my mom's house to our house, which is 5 minutes away, right at the end of halftime. And I turned it on, and I heard a couple balls bounce as I was putting something in the fridge, and then it was 40-30 right then.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, that's it. And then I think as the minutes wore on, even on the possessions where UConn wasn't scoring, you could see Purdue feeling like, oh, no, they have us where they want us right now. And there was just a struggle from then on because there was no one who hits the pedal harder than UConn when they have a lead. I think it's a little bit, even though they blew out teams way worse throughout, but the 2021 Baylor run, if you got to, at any point during that season, if they got to an 8-point lead on you, it was over because you were not going to get 3 possessions in a row where you were going to score.
Because that defense was so
good.
Locked down.
And UConn was so good in every aspect that you're just not going to get, once they got to double digits, 4 or 5 possessions in a row, and they only let Purdue shoot 7 threes last night. I mean, 1 of 7 from 3, you're not going to beat UConn making a 3.
Yeah.
You're going to have to make a lot of them, and I know that
their
game runs through
Alabama,
80, but still.
They're going to have to hit 15 or 17 to have a chance, and they tried to. But so Craig, we're going to get to how many national titles in a minute, but they have beaten the hell out of people now, even with the loss to Creighton and Kansas, and I believe there was another loss in there somewhere else. They have just manhandled people this year.
Respectfully, who cares about the losses? I mean, I know what your point is about them manhandling people, but they had a couple of down, results, but for the most part, I don't think those are going to be really remembered that far into the future. All people are going to remember is, yes, this tremendous run that they're on, the back-to-back national titles, trying to make it 3. I'm sure we'll hear a lot of chatter about that over the next year when the times come, and already seen a little bit of that on Twitter about them trying to run it back again. But just an awfully impressive job. It wasn't the most exciting game in the world, but it did always feel like UConn was pretty in control of that game. I mean, I know it was tight at halftime, and, the second half, it kind of ebbed and flowed as far as remaining close enough that it wasn't a game over situation. But there with a few minutes left, I mean, they clearly separated themselves far enough to go, okay, this one's over now. This is kind of how we expected it to go. They're so long and athletic and explosive and just
and physical too,
big. And and Zach Edey's the biggest dude on the court, but then every other matchup, I think UConn might have had like they just had like the typical kind of height, at every position to have an advantage, except for against Edey. Even then they had a 7-footer though.
They did. They had a 7-footer and they had guys going down to just like annoy the hell out of him, like mosquitoes in the summertime down below his waist.
Yeah, I mean they're a really good squad and really well coached, and it's just a great way to end what was a tremendous run, and they're flirting with a lot of stuff when it comes to the history books as well, and people are trying to portray them as the best since this or the best since that. However that all shakes out in people's minds, I think we're definitely all realizing we're seeing something pretty great right now in Storrs, Connecticut with Dan Hurley and that basketball program. So yeah, hats off to the Huskies, and great finish to a very fun and entertaining season. I do feel like there's a lot left to be desired, especially in comparison to the women's game, which I never thought I would say that, but it did feel like that one had a lot more juice to it. And I'm sure that the tip-off time had something to do with that, because as much as we talked about that for a second yesterday, and I said, yeah, that's just what it is every year, which is true. Man, that really is a long time to wait for a basketball game to tip off, man. Like, that really was. I was like 9 o'clock, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go check in on this. Oh, wait, I still have 20 minutes of pregame left to go. So that was just a weird yearly reminder of why that just is an idea that not a lot of people are on board with. But I think that affected some of the juice probably as well, even though it was local time just fine there in Phoenix. But, yeah, not the greatest ending to a season, but it was fine, and UConn was pretty much from start to finish the best team. So I think the best team was standing tall at the end of things.
Here now are a list of the national championships, and it's interesting because UCLA hasn't won one in a long, long time. They made a run. They were the one that took Gonzaga, remember, to the wire and then overtime in 2021. They've had a great history. That's the 6th national title, all of them since 1999. UCLA, 11. Wooden with Wooden won like 8 or 9 of those. Kentucky with 8, but it's been a while for them too. North Carolina with 6, and that's where UConn is. And this is one of those. It wasn't like doing things back in the 30s and 40s to add 1 or 2 there. This has been, over the last quarter of a century, 6 national titles. Is it comparable to who in football?
Bama.
No, Bama's
a mix of Kentucky and UConn.
Yeah, there you go.
Because
That's
Bama
great.
for a while was what Kentucky is, except for they didn't even have like the 98 and the 20. They had their stretch where they were, and then they came back with a ferocity where they've reeled off all these modern, these recent ones. So yeah, I think they're kind of a mix of both Kentucky and UConn. So maybe. I mean, it's hard to say because they've won 6 in such a short amount. Nobody's done that.
In the 80s, 90s, and Miami kind of came out of nowhere. Florida State just couldn't quite get to that. But
Georgia sort of has that potential. Like Clemson was on their way to kind of be. But I think in football, though, it's just so much harder.
I'm talking about a non-alpha blue blood type name that all of a sudden is just Clemson. Running. Clemson's probably it because they had the one in 81 or 80, and then there was a long time there. And same thing with Georgia with what they've done. All right, so there we are with the national championship numbers, and my goodness, they're making a run at that. A couple of other college basketball notes. Houston, L.J. Cryer, who said he's going to have offseason surgery on his foot, he's going to run it back. Was it Baylor? Went to Houston, had a nice run. Then, of course, just wasn't Jamal Shedd, who is in that second half against who was it that knocked him out? Good God, I just went blank. Duke knocked him out in the tournament. He's coming back. Juwan Roberts walking around with a cane. He just had surgery. I love this kid. Lefty, very angular, very athletic, a shot blocker, can score, smooth. He's going to come back as well. So Houston has a couple of their dogs coming back from this year's team that was so darn good.
Well, they have 4 or 5 starters now that are coming back to next year's team. So, yeah, the expectations, I mean, they'll be a preseason top 5. You would think we'll see what they do in the transfer portal, but just alone returning the amount of players that they are, that would seem to ensure that they're going to be right there near the top of the rankings once again next season and have in tow some massive expectations, because you just don't bring all those guys back and then just say, like, yeah, we'll exit in the Sweet 16 again. It's like, no, not with not with all those guys coming back. Like, you're definitely on a mission to go grab the big brass ring at the end of this thing. So great news for the Cougs. I mean, not shocked. That is one thing I was speaking about a little bit earlier with the guys that I do think is an interesting situation in college basketball where because of the style of the game, all the best players aren't really wanted by the NBA, and they all are, because of NIL, now coming back rather than going to the Europe ranks and maybe making an NBA team or maybe not. Like Zach Edey's out there last night. I mean, here he is, this monster on the court. You would think, if you didn't know any better, like, this guy's going to be the number 1 draft pick. And they're talking about, like, I think somebody will give him a shot in the NBA. It's like, give him a shot. He's a college player of the year, but that's just the difference in styles. And so,
but he's not the kid from San Antonio, the Spurs, that's so long and athletic. Yeah. He's not that, but he's still.
Well, no, because he can't sit there and just shoulder,
They'll push him all over the place. He still can be a factor. But
he's not just going to sit there and bully his way down low like he's able to do in the college ranks. But I do find that disconnect interesting. And is that good for the college game? I don't really know. I don't know. I feel like the women's game is popular. Why? Because they've got stars. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that the men really have many stars these days. And Zach Edey's a star, but I know Caitlin Clark's going to the WNBA. And like, I don't watch the WNBA. Maybe I'd be inclined to watch it if it was like an Angel Reese, now Caitlin Clark matchup in the finals or something. But I know that they're bringing some oomph to that league, and maybe some new popularity as well. We'll see how this wave goes the rest of the way. But there is just a lack of it when you're talking about the biggest star in the men's side. Is he might make it in the NBA? Well, we'll see. We don't know. It's just sort of strange how far off the two sports are in terms of the stars and how they translate over.
All right, there's one other note. This is from Chris Karpman, who you guys had on Friday, who covers Arizona State. Here's a note. UConn's AD, David Benedict, played football at Southern Utah, worked in ASU's athletic department for about a decade. His wife is a former All-American gymnast at Arizona State. He's been at Auburn. He's been at Minnesota. And then Chris was throwing out there that with the possibility of what Arizona State's trying to do, that could be a name to look at in the future for Arizona State and also athletics. And then the troublemakers, Florida State in the ACC. Paul, you got multiple things here.
Yeah, we got 3 of them.
3 of them, without getting too complicated, which can happen. But what was actually what happened?
I'll skip ahead because they've gotten to the end of this just recently. So, Garrett, you can just put me back to the full screen because there's a lot of things that were said here. But ultimately, FSU, this is the case in Leon County, which is Tallahassee, where they live. This is the home field advantage case for them. The Judge Cooper, in the case, denied the ACC's motion to postpone FSU's lawsuit against the conference as the North Carolina suit continues. The ACC had argued that they filed suit first, so the Florida State one shouldn't happen until theirs is solved. Well, the judge in Florida says, that means you guys were forum shopping and getting out to Florida State before they got to you. And no, we're not going to do that. So both cases will proceed as scheduled. He's not going to do that. He also stayed on the motion of discovery, which means that now that both sides have to do all the discovery and there will be information out there as it gets to that point. So the ACC and ESPN kind of have to now find a new plan to try to hide this information that they didn't want to come out. And so today was a big win for FSU. And the judge said that.
I saw people say that it was a bad day for FSU.
No, today's a good day for FSU. They also said that, because of North Carolina law, there's some sovereignty in Florida that doesn't, protect them in North Carolina. So today was a win for FSU. And again, these are little wins.
There's not a win yet.
No, there's not a win. Like, these are little wins.
Little steps, yeah.
It's, last week the ACC hit a target that they wanted to hit. This week, FSU hit a target they wanted to hit. So
good for them, spending millions and millions of dollars to try to make that happen. And may not change anything, or at least it's kind of like, oh, wait a minute, they still have that lawsuit.
So when are they joining the Big 12?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Hey, by the way, so I you know what? It's part of what we cover. It absolutely is what drove a lot of you to what we do every day and what we were doing for a long, long time since the Texas and OU and all since that time. But golly, it takes time to get through legal proceedings, and it might take a long time. But we'll see what happens with those two.
No, man, I think it's all valid information. It's interesting, especially if you're a Florida State fan or just crazy about realignment. Now, I totally understand that, but there's a lot of things that are being predicted to happen, but you see here like how far away we are from this even being decided. Now, they could come to an agreement and it's all water under the bridge and they all move on. But, yeah, it is more of like baby steps right now, and this floating idea of like where everybody ends up is just fun to speculate on. But I saw a lot of Florida State Big 12 stuff last week, and I don't believe that for a single solitary second. You don't put up all this fight to go land in the Big 12, guys.
No.
This is not to go land in the Big 12. So I just think that's kind of silly. But we'll see how this plays out. And obviously everybody's doing the same as far as watching how this plays out. It's very curious because you don't know like kind of what to expect or prepare for, because it is just these sort of bit by bit proceedings that, move on to another court date or whatever. So it's just a matter of when do we get to the point where like some stuff really starts to get, impactful and start to move some ground underneath. So there's a lot of battles to win a war, and, Florida State wins one here and ACC wins one there, and count them up at the end, and we'll see who won enough to win this war between the two sides. But yeah, I don't see an end in sight right now. And when that comes, it's just going to be fascinating to see what all that looks like, because this is the game-changing lawsuit, and I know that they're not alone in this, Florida State, but this is the one that's basically going to set the table for the next era of college football. Yeah. So yeah, it's fascinating. It's just that it's taking these little moments in court, whereas with the Pac-12, like, all we knew was they had a TV deal they were negotiating, and it was like, all right, the clock's ticking. We know the clock's ticking, but like at what point are you going to be able to unveil something? And then as we know, it just went on and on and on and on and on. With this, you can't keep tabs of the court system. I'm just not familiar enough to know when we've really made solid advances or not through all this, so I'll rely on those experts that can help clear the air there.
All right, one other college football note. Damian Martinez. This is a dude, Oregon State running back. He is fantastic. Is entering the portal. He is everybody, there's nobody in the country that would not want him. Maybe 8 to 12 programs that have star running backs that may not have carries for him. He is a fantastic player. Craig, you brought him up earlier. First time I really ever heard about him was when I heard you mention him. And I'd seen Oregon State. He was pretty good, but he will be very coveted in the portal.
Yeah, he's not the best running back in college football by any means, but he's a very good running back and had a great career in Corvallis. And I'm surprised to see this news just because he was one of those when Jonathan Smith left that had come out and said, I'm sticking around here and I'm going to be here with Oregon State, and really kind of rallied people in a way because he's one of their better players. Yeah. And when you're losing guys, not only your head coach, but then you're losing staff, or then you're starting to lose, Aiden Childs and so on, for him to sit there and be the guy, kind of like with Fafita and McMillan at Arizona. Like, they helped stop the bleeding, it felt like. I felt like Damian Martinez announcing he was coming back was able to do that somewhat for Oregon State. So, yeah, I don't know what changed. I know he had the arrest for, I think, marijuana back during bowl season. That was obviously bad timing. I can't imagine that led to this.
Where was he?
I don't remember the details of that. I think he was driving.
Yeah, okay. I mean, getting arrested for marijuana in Oregon.
But it wasn't a big deal, though. I don't remember the details of it, but it wasn't like he's facing jail time and he's going to go away for a while. So it wasn't enough reason to get him booted off the team. They had reinstated him, as a matter of fact, after he had been suspended. So that's the only thing that popped in my head of like, why would he? And that doesn't register. So, yeah, I don't know what happened here. I'll have to, I guess, scour the Oregon State message boards and see if there was some occurrence, or if it was just simply of like he looked around the room and is like, yeah, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. I'm going to go test NIL because he can get some NIL. But, yeah, that's definitely a loss for Oregon State, no doubt about it.
Yeah, so that's one to look at. There's a couple of other notes we'll get to today. Coming up at the top of the hour, Wes Moore, who's in Little Rock, covers Arkansas, is the one that is, hey, oh, by the way, this is pretty legitimate with Calipari in Arkansas. We'll have him today at 4 o'clock. And former Utah and now their football color analyst Scott Mitchell will join us today at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, tying up a loose end, Martinez was accused of driving under the influence of intoxicants, reckless driving, reckless endangerment. That was back in late November. But then he was reinstated to the team prior to their bowl game in like a month later because the DA elected not to file charges. So he got reinstated and was available to play in the game. And so there you go with that. So, yeah, that wouldn't be the situation that would drive you out of town. So, yeah, it could be just NIL, could be following Jonathan Smith ultimately. I don't know, but that's a Texas kid, so maybe he comes closer to home, but I'll definitely be interested in where he lands.
Real quick, basketball transfer portal note. Indiana State's Robbie Avila, who I like to call Larry Nerd because of his glasses.
Kurt Rambis.
Oh,
yeah.
It was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah, that's right.
They basically took all of the nicknames for, what's his face, Sean King.
Yeah.
Not the former quarterback, the
media guy.
No, the activist guy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
They basically, yeah, exactly. The grifter, the con man. No, they basically took all of his nicknames and have applied him now to this guy, and it's a lot more fun doing it with him than with the other one.
This is tragic. Link in bio. No.
Right.
So sad. Please pay me money.
GoFundMe.
But Josh Schertz, ISU coach, went to St. Louis, and Robbie Avila has asked schools not to reach out to him. So if you follow those breadcrumbs, that means he's picked his school already. Yeah. And maybe it's St. Louis and following Josh Schertz, or maybe somebody else, is going there. So the Sycamore's best player is on his way somewhere else.
Well, you talk about somebody who could benefit from NIL, though. Like the fact that you could buy jerseys, like he's a guy who seems like a prime candidate for some merchandise.
Plus Krispy Kreme.
Right here.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yep.
Krispy Kreme Abdul-Jabbar. I don't know if Krispy Kreme would go for that, but yeah, I mean, he's got some opportunities, I think, in front of him. Yeah, I don't know if you want to lean on it as much as us joking about it, but yeah.
I just call him Larry Nerd because he went to Indiana State.
Yeah.
Larry Bird did.
Yeah.
Larry Blurred was another one because of the goggles. Milk Chamberlain was another one of those. Steph Blurry was another one. So, yeah.
Good for him. By the way, MC Gusto, $25 super chat. Losing UCF basketball bets to retired stockbroker. Never felt so good. Go. 365. MC, glad you guys got that done.
But, by the way, I like this betting where the loser has to do a super chat. That can
on
continue.
On top of whatever the bet was.
That can continue. I fully encourage that. That is that we all win.
He also, you know what MC did? He manned up. He had a bet. He was excited. UCF did not work out. He and retired stockbroker, the Houston Cougar fan, got that done. Good for you. All right, 3:42 is the time. Coming up again in 20 minutes, Wes Moore on, again, there's going to be another delay apparently for about another day on whether Calipari, well, he will be officially introduced, but not today. Today was about him saying goodbye to Kentucky, and we'll get more feedback on that too here on today's show.
You want one more note on Damian Martinez before we go? So, I mean, just in general, I followed him because he's from Texas and he's had a really good career in Corvallis. And then as we're talking about it, I just happened to flip over to Twitter and I see Pete Thamel's reporting on it. Sources, Oregon State running back, even though I think we just had the tweet that is saying it already, but that's the ESPN way of things. But he adds he was set to make more than $400,000 to play at Oregon State this year. So, yeah, I guess there's.
So he's about to make
500,000, if not more than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's just interesting to have that as an attachment to our reports these days, whereas that was just never a thought. And now it's like, he's going to make about $400K if he came back.
You're also right about the sources. That's a way of
like
we didn't have it first. So sources. Garrett, did you get my email?
Yes.
From Jeff Goodman, who of course does a great job with National College Basketball. The question about Scott Drew, I've seen this from a lot of Baylor fans react to it as well. Scott Drew should have a statue at Baylor one day, regardless of whether he leaves today, tomorrow, or in 5 years. Goodman and many others have said Drew is the top candidate. So is Ashley Hodge as far as in our premium section. And the question has been, how much? This is a man that people are absolutely, they adore him for what he's done, the turnaround, the best one perhaps ever in college sports. How would, if he left, would that affect the relationship between him and Baylor fans? Because when Matt Rule, who flirted, left, there were some that were like, good. Kim Mulkey, who kind of all of a sudden created this thing with LSU, when she left, that was a 50-50 split depending on what part, if you were in her army or not. How would that affect him if he all of a sudden took the job at Kentucky?
Well, Matt Rule was never fully all in. I mean, people wanted him to be. He acted as though he was. And look, I want to preface this by saying I like Matt Rule a lot. I'm not saying this as a negative or as like talking. I'm just saying what factually happened around here is that people wanted to embrace him and wrap their arms around him. And, sir, there were certain like Bryles folks who just, they're still not over it and never will be. But for the most part, everybody was on board eventually as they saw kind of the process start to work. And you just got to remember, too, that was a very, like, it's hard to even describe that time around here. It's not something that everybody just automatically understands of what the temperature was like in the room back then. It was very contentious and for a lot of different reasons. But he could have been a guy with a statue, but he just never was fully able to get,
I don't think Matt Rule would ever have had a statue.
No. I mean, if he would have stayed for like 20 years, he could have. But he was never going to be that guy. But it was a matter of like, is he even going to be here next year? Like, you couldn't even enjoy the ride because you were always waiting for when it was going to end at any moment. And look, that's exactly what happened. They get to the Sugar Bowl, and boom, he's gone. And so, that one I think was.
And he also admitted later on how much he regretted that story overriding what they were doing getting ready for the Sugar Bowl.
Which it did. It totally overshadowed the entire week in New Orleans because we were there covering it, and it was all talk about him and the Jets, or who was it, the Jets then? It was the Jets, the Giants. I mean, name a team. He was rumored for it, and it did take away from that New Orleans trip. It absolutely did. Now, they played Georgia, who was about to go on their run. It was like the year before they went and won the national title, so that was just unfortunate luck there. It wouldn't matter how focused they were. Georgia was going to win that game probably, but he was different because there were plenty of people that just didn't trust him from the beginning because he wasn't what they knew. He's a Northeastern guy. He's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So when he left, it was just like, see, we knew that was going to happen. Mulkey was a shocker. But I think the way that she handled that, kind of forcing the issue herself publicly on that Louisiana radio show.
She went on a station and
she created the story out of nowhere and then led to LSU going, oh, wait, what? And boom, there you go. And then she plays, the game with the Baylor side of things and ends up ultimately in Baton Rouge, and depends on who you ask of how all that went down. But I know the versions that I've heard most often are that she was the one, quote unquote, at fault for not being around any longer. So that one definitely has people split because she had her loyalists that are always going to feel like they could have done more to keep her. And then there's, I think, people who are a bit more realistic that realize like the amount of leverage that she constantly exercised just became exhausting for everybody. And it became toxic. And there were people that would say, yeah, we'd rather just not win national championships as regularly in women's basketball rather than deal with this on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. That's where she found herself. So by the end, you had a split, but I don't think it was as toxic as maybe it was bad, but people kind of understood what side you were on. With Scott Drew, I don't know how you could possibly look at him and have anything but positive things to say.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, even I saw somebody on the board say, he's just like every other coach. Dude, he's been here for 20-plus years. This is not coming in and leaving and dipping after like a winning season. He's been here. He's won a Natty. He's won the Big 12. He's brought in 5 stars. He's done everything, and he's done it over a long period of time. So if he decides, I want to do something different, I'm going to high-five him and say, man, that was incredible. I can't wait to see you inducted in the Hall of Fame one day. But that's just me.
Yeah, and so, again, people get kind of caught up on these names of the arena, the court, and sometimes it's the coaches, or statues or whatever. What I've learned about a lot of that stuff is that you probably need to wait a little bit before you start to build any of those. Ask TCU about Gary Patterson. Do they appreciate him? Hell yeah. Do they like him right now? No. But did he earn that? Probably, because of what he did to put TCU where they are on the national map, even though he hasn't been there now for 3+ years.
I think Jeff Goodman is correct in that he still deserves a statue even if he were to leave, but I think that it's going to take a lot longer than 5 years. Yeah. It's going to be more like 15 or 20.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be any sooner than that if he's off coaching another school.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think eventually everybody will be on board with that, but not any damn time soon. And he's going to be close, if not retired, when that time eventually does come because, yeah, they're not doing it while he's going to, potentially go over to Kentucky and coach them to potential championships.
And remember the story of a week, 2 or 3 or 5 later with either ESPN with Vopel or also with Ross Dellinger when Kim even admitted that she probably wouldn't have left the place that would have had her name on the court or somewhere like that. And that was something that was always floated out there by her and her people around her. And so you just never know. That's why I think we let things kind of calm itself down. But that will be interesting. The Scott Drew, does he release a statement? Does he say he's not interested? Will anyone believe him if he does? And will he leave Baylor, where he has built one hell of a program and the national championship just 3 years ago? This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental. Dr. Steve Childress is my dentist, and I'm proud to say that. He is unbelievable. Haven't had to go there in a while, and that's a good thing, because I used to go to his place, his office, to his dental building a lot to play catch-up for being a dumb idiot when it comes to maintaining proper dental work. I used to have, I've said the story, sugar upon sugar, lozenges in my mouth all of the time, even during broadcast. It just was something I got into a habit of doing, and I kind of liked the taste of the lozenge. And it also soothed my throat and eventually ruined my teeth, a lot of them. So I've had some pulled, I've had some replaced, I've had crowns put in, I've got a retainer for my front bridge, I've had a handful of also root canals. Not fun. I'd love to just go to a dentist and get my teeth cleaned, but that's not the case. In fact, I stopped doing that for a while because I knew they're going to find a cavity or need a root canal. Dr. Steve Childress is there to help take care of emergencies. He's done that with me on a Friday night late, met me at his office to take care of a pain, and then first thing on a Monday morning to make sure we did what was necessary moving forward. He is there for you, his dental hygienist and his staff, other dentists in the building. Stonewood Dental, and the man's got a big heart, I'm telling you. Steve Childress in Robinson, Texas.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Offering over 50 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and 10 cycling classes with morning and evening classes available. New state-of-the-art bikes that allow you to compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow, losing inches in weight the right way. There's a kids club included with your membership, plus sauna and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts, plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior pro Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Wes Moore from Fox 16 in Little Rock, along with the Buzz radio station show that he does. He's wrapping that up. We'll have him here momentarily. Here's an interesting note. Oklahoma will play their season opener against Temple on a Friday, on a night. ESPN, not on Saturday, August 31st. I saw where the AD mentioned that they were asked by SEC wanted to highlight them, their first game as an SEC conference team. That game will be on Friday. You're going to see a lot of these games pop. I saw where Jeff Traylor apologized for UTSA playing a Friday game this year. Wasn't happy about it because his relationship with the High School Coaches Association, it is part of the money that all of these conferences and teams are making. You're going to see it more often. It's not like it's new.
Yeah, Oklahoma fans constantly complaining about 11 a.m. kickoffs, and now they've got a new one to complain about with a Friday night kickoff. I mean, yeah, I think this is just the new era of college football and trying to find spots, real estate for people to put their brands on TV. So there's been a lot of talk about the Fridays. I understand the pushback from high school coaches and whatnot in this state, but I just don't, I'm sorry, I don't think it's affecting attendance either way that much. I really don't, guys. I mean, I get that it's shifting away the attention, but I don't know. I feel like if you were already following San Antonio Roosevelt High School football, then you were going to still follow them regardless of if your alma mater, Texas, is playing on that Friday night. You know what I mean? You're going to find a way to still watch it,
Do you know
about
that there
it.
are phones where you could watch
exactly.
things?
This is not 1972 where you can only be in one place at one time. You can do both, and you can't be in two places at once, but you can dang sure keep up with everything. So I get that they're worried it might take away attendance-wise, but I think if you're somebody who regularly attends high school games, that's kind of normally your number one anyways. That would be your default to go to. But I don't know. There's a lot of unique people out there that maybe this is a tug of war for them. But yeah, Friday night games are just getting started, boys. It's not brand new anyways, but as far as seeing some of the bigger brands on Fridays, there's only so much real estate to go around. They got to do it with these super conferences. The SEC's got all the TV stuff, but there's only so many places to put games.
Well, and again, it's the SEC wanting to promote one of their new schools. That doesn't mean that Oklahoma will be the only one playing on a Friday night. And they do a good job. And one of the things that they do, man, they have your back. If you're in the conference, they have your damn back. Not that a Friday game against Temple is going to make that much of a difference, but it will highlight them. Other conferences, the Big 12, the Pac-12, and other conferences are playing games on Friday nights. It is a part of college football today.
And that is how I would view it, too, of you get the standalone spotlight on a Friday night. I even saw a Sooner fan who responded oh, great, I got Saturday to sit back and watch all the games. I don't have to be out in Norman, tailgating or whatever. So, not something that you want to do all that often, but something that I think everybody, even in Oklahoma, is going to have to come to grips with from time to time. So, yeah, it's not a big deal, but definitely a bit of a break from the tradition, as probably a lot of people knew it. And a blow for those who feel like high school football should have that territory. But then again, The NFL, they just go grab territory. Granted, they're the big dog in the yard, but they've gone and grabbed territory from college football constantly. So college football's got to find room somewhere, and unfortunately at the expense of maybe some high school football. But if that's the case, that's the case.
All right. By the way, Chuck Cooperstein with a neat quote. I'm going to use what he said about Scott Drew, then we'll go to our guest here in just a second. He goes, "The king does not abdicate his throne." Roy Williams leaving a blue blood for a blue blood was to go back to his alma mater. And that was a very special situation. And he was talking about that with Scott Drew and how he doesn't think that that will happen, although, again, Kentucky is Kentucky.
If there is a list of pros and cons for Scott Drew taking the Kentucky job, if in fact he goes down that road, I don't know how many pros you could put in favor of Baylor, like certainly not financially or size or things like that. Now, you definitely have some things you didn't used to have, like a brand new arena that absolutely changed the game when it came to their home attendance and just the impact of their home attendance. But what he mentions there is the number one reason to stay outside of faith, family, friendships. And that is, it's your throne. Like, you built that sucker, and you've been sitting on it for 2 decades, and it's yours. And it's not Rick Pitino's or John Calipari's before you. I mean, you are the one and only that's sat on that. And, yeah, you can continue to build on it or abdicate it, like he said. But, yeah, I would like to believe what he says there. The king doesn't abdicate his throne, and Scott Drew's certainly the king of Baylor basketball. So, maybe that's something that does work in their favor. I did have, if I had to name a con, a new one I thought of last night. I don't think this will be a tipping point because I don't think Scott Drew's listening, but, I mean, he wouldn't have to play all his assistant coaches all the time.
True.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And I would think that maybe is, like, you know, if you're just adding these little tallies, maybe that would be something he would enjoy, but, you know, let that please not be the deciding factor that I just brought up. He's like, oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that, but I'm sure he's thought all of this through.
Wes Moore does a hell of a job in the state of Arkansas, covers Arkansas for Fox TV and also for the Buzz radio station in Little Rock. He joins us on 365 Sports, and he is the one that was the first that popped kind of the white smoke or close to something smoldering with John Calipari and also Arkansas that lit up everybody. Wes, I know it's been a busy 3 days for you, and also tomorrow Calipari apparently will be introduced. What has your life been like the last couple of 2 or 3 days?
Oh, wow. You know what? As long as we've been doing radio and you make contacts and you have guests on your show and you get to know each other, once something like this happens, everybody wants to talk to you, and you feel like, man, I got to talk to them because they've been coming on my show for years. We got a business relationship. And so I've done a lot of radio interviews. Let me just say that, and that's fine. I like talking about the program and the Razorbacks, and that's part of what we do. You know, we tell stories. So it's been crazy. I'll tell you, man. When I hit tweet and I sat back and I saw that Twitter notification just and then myself. That's what was crazy. My cell phone, just whether it was just friends in the media, colleagues, just everybody blowing me up. And look, Dave, I was 100% confident. I mean, I knew I had it. I had 3 good sources. I had one source that was just locked down. Like, I got it, and I trust the heck out of this guy. We've known each other for a long time. He knows who I am and what I stand for. And I even say, you know, if I'm wrong on this, I'm going to take a beating. My image, my reputation, everything I've done my whole career is going down the drain. He's like, Wes, I wouldn't do you that way. You know, I know who you are. This is good. You're good. Report it. I was like, okay. And so David tweeted, and then I have friends in the media. They're like, Wes, are you sure? Or, Wes, I hope you have good sources. Or even one that said, Wes, I'm not hearing anything like that. Are you positive? And David, when you get that, you're like,
oh no.
You know, you start to kind of second guess yourself. And I sat back in my chair in my office and I started going over the hours of work, the people that I talked to in the last conversation I had. And I was like, no, I'm good with this. I am 100% sure I'm fine. And I started writing my story. You know, I was leading the 9 o'clock news. It's like 8:30. You know, I got a ton of work to do. I can't answer these texts. I can't get on Twitter. I got to get to work for TV. You know how that is. You got a deadline. The news is going to start at 9 o'clock, whether I'm out there or not. And so I'm writing my script and editing the VO and doing everything you got to do to get ready for the newscast. And then I go out there and I do I break it on Fox 16, and I get done with that, and I come back to my office and to get ready for the the sportscast that's coming up later. And I see the notifications, and I can't even look at them. I got too much to do, and I see my phone, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't answer these texts, I can't take these calls. So anyway, I stayed away from it until after my sportscast, and I was on the desk wrapping up. I had done my sportscast, we'd taken a break, and during the break I looked at Twitter, and I saw a tweet out of Kentucky that said, sources tell us that John Calipari has notified the university per his contract that he is in discussions with Arkansas. And I was like, bam, that's it. I knew I was right. This is right. And then soon after, that's when your national guys started picking up and tweeting it out and saying that Arkansas is zeroing in and talking with John Calipari. So that was kind of that was gratifying. That was like where you knew, yeah, I was right. I knew I was right. And I stuck by my guns, and everything's okay.
Wes, Paul, I wonder from Arkansas's perspective, what do they feel? Are they getting Calipari at his best, or are they getting Calipari? I mean, I know they think they are, but are they getting Calipari with something to prove?
Yeah, that's been the talk on my radio show for the last couple of days. There's no denying that the last couple of years at Kentucky in the NCAA tournament haven't lived up to Kentucky standards. You can't lose to Oakland and St. Peter's in the first round. He's had very talented teams with good regular season records, but in the postseason they've struggled. Are you getting that Calipari? And there are, of course, there are those fans. There's going to be the negative fans that say he's washed up, he's done. The one and done system doesn't work anymore. His players only care about getting to the NBA. They don't care about winning, and especially winning a title. And then you have other fans that say, look, this is going to be a rejuvenated John Calipari, that, sometimes a fresh start's what everybody needs. I tend to think, and I've been told part of my, while digging, one of the reasons he wanted to come to Arkansas was because he now can get his son on his staff, and that excites him a lot. He couldn't hire him at Kentucky. His son was on Stackhouse's staff at Vanderbilt. So he's excited. He's rejuvenated. He gets to work with his son. And this is a fresh start. But plus, now he's got a chip on his shoulder. And I've been told that by several people, that he wants to prove it to Kentucky that he wasn't washed up. He wants to prove it. Look, he's taken UMass, Memphis, and Kentucky to the Final Four. Of course, the UMass and the Memphis was wiped off the record books, but how many coaches have taken 4 different teams to a Final Four? That's something he can do at Arkansas. And I think Arkansas is in a good situation. I think they're getting a motivated John Calipari that wants to show the world that he's not washed up.
So what was this the reaction in Little Rock and Fayetteville and throughout Hog? I mean, we know how passionate. I always will remember the Nolan Richardson teams, or the teams that Arkansas has had that dominated those tournaments in Dallas when it was the Big Eight. I mean, the Southwest Conference, and all of that history. What are former players? What are they saying? What's this been like for Arkansas fans?
Well, I had Joe Klein with me on the show yesterday. I asked him, scale of 1 to 10, where does this rank? He said, well, 10. Dusty Hannas came on today. He's over in Tel Aviv playing overseas. He said he was so excited he had to come on the show. He said this brings Arkansas back. This is what Arkansas deserves. People think of Arkansas and Nolan Richardson and winning a championship. And guys, here's where we're coming from. Arkansas won a championship in 94, played for it in 95, went to the Sweet 16 in 96. They went 25 years without getting into the Sweet 16. 25 years. After that run, you go 25 years without getting to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. That seems impossible. But that's exactly what happened until Eric Musselman came, and they go Elite Eight, Sweet 16. Man, that rejuvenated Arkansas. Arkansas basketball was back. And then Musselman leaves and goes to USC. They miss out on Chris Beard. And then all of a sudden, these names like Will Wade, Darrell Walker. Look, I like Coach Walker. He's here at Little Rock, and he's a friend. But when those kind of Chris Jans, those names weren't exciting the fan base. And they're like, somebody said on the show, we're about to have a Stan Heath hire, and Arkansas is going to be irrelevant again. Then all of a sudden, the news breaks that it's John Calipari. You go from Chris Jans, or there was even talk about for a rumor of the name was floated out there of Kansas State coach Tang. You go from that to John Calipari. That's why you have such an excited fan base. Look, John Calipari is excited. Name a bigger name in basketball as a head coach right now. You can go with Hurley, and that's about it, right? And I don't know if Hurley's bigger. He may be bigger right now because he's gone back to back. John Calipari's got a huge name. But yesterday, the championship game's about to be played, and all they were talking about on ESPN leading up to the game was John Calipari. Mm-hmm. That's how big he is. Arkansas is not going to be irrelevant now. That fear is gone. They know he's going to recruit here. He's going to get great players. They're going to have success. The question is just how much success. How far can he take them in the NCAA tournament?
I know this is kind of a left turn, but if they're willing to spend this much on basketball and be successful at that, if I'm Sam Pittman and I'm already nervous, should he be more nervous that they might make this kind of similar move in football after this year?
I got that exact same call today. Mm-hmm. No doubt. Less than an hour ago, a guy said, well, if we can do this for basketball, why can't we do it for football? And my response was, and my response to y'all is, just because you got a ton of money doesn't mean you just want to give it away. You got to have a reason.
That's
to give
why
it away,
they have
right?
a lot of money. That's
exactly. And so John Tyson was motivated to give his money away to the university and to the NIL fund because of his relationship with John Calipari. They're friends. They've been friends for a while. There are pictures on the internet when Calipari comes and plays Arkansas the night before. He always has dinner with John. And there's a group of them that meet and go out and they take pictures, and people, they've been seen. Their relationship goes back a ways back. And so that's the motivation here. Yeah. Jerry Jones, you would think, hey, Jerry, give Arkansas, you got $10 million laying around. Just give them for a new football coach and for the NIL fund. Why don't you do that? I don't know. You'll have to ask Jerry for that. You can ask all you want to. That doesn't mean they're going to give it to you. They got to be motivated to give it to them.
Wes Moore, Fox 16 in Little Rock, also the Buzz Radio, does a hell of a job and had this thing back in the early part, I guess it was in the afternoon on Sunday, and the story about what it's been like since that time. So tomorrow they introduce him. What took so long? Was it waiting for him to inform Kentucky? What was the dynamics there?
I honestly just think it was the contract, the lawyers looking at it. There was no backing out. There was no second thoughts. This has been a done deal since Sunday night. There's just a lot involved, I think, with the contract and then, with the lawyers going back and forth. And I think Calipari's been working on his time too. I'm sure Arkansas would have loved to have him in. And look, let me throw this in too. You guys probably know this too. It's kind of an unwritten rule. You don't want to upstage the championship game or the Final Four. And so I think that's one of the reasons they didn't announce anything yesterday. But then we've come to find out the Board of Trustees was hoping to meet today to finalize the contract. They have to approve any, above line item issues. And of course, this is going to be above a normal line item issue. So they have to approve this. That's a formality. But they couldn't meet today. There was too many conflicts with different board members. And so they're going to meet tomorrow. And so that's part of it too. And here, the main thing, look, he's been working. I've been told he's been working behind the scenes. He's getting his staff ready. I'm sure he's even been recruiting and talking to different players. And look, if you want to talk to your players, any current players at Kentucky, we're better to be than they're in Kentucky. So you can talk to them face to face. But you also have to it's a big move for him. He's packing up, leaving Kentucky and coming to Arkansas. He's been there for 15 years, so there's a lot of things to settle there too. But I've been told he's been working and getting things done and getting his staff ready. So board's going to approve it tomorrow. He'll fly in tomorrow. They'll have a a big press conference tomorrow night at Bud Walton Arena, and it'll all be done, and he can get to work Thursday, because Thursday's the first day you can have recruits on campus again. Because of that dead period due to the Final Four. If he wants to have some portal guys in, he can fly them in on Thursday and visit Bud Walton Arena.
Eric Musselman leaves to go to USC. Calipari comes in. Was there a feeling between Eric Musselman and the powers that be that this was maybe kind of like Calipari in Kentucky, just a shorter-term deal, that it's better for both sides if they move on? I mean, because it did kind of take me by surprise that a guy who's had, outside of this year where they weren't as good, but the last few years, a ton of success.
After the first Elite Eight run Arkansas had under Musselman, there was, I don't remember now what job came open, and the rumors started floating, and Razorback fans got, paranoid, worried, and that's when he got his first extension. And I was told by someone who knew Musselman well, he's like, he's not going there. Don't worry about that. The jobs you have to worry about are USC, UCLA, and San Diego State. Those are his dream jobs. He's from, went to school at San Diego State University. His mom's back in California, family back there. He loves the West Coast. Those are his dream jobs. That's the ones you have to worry about. And so, SMU came open. I wasn't, he's not going to. I didn't worry about anything until SMU hired Andy Enfield, and then I was like, oh no, that's not good. And sure enough, this is all about him going home, guys. It wasn't, there was no ill will at Arkansas. They were trying to keep him. I was told they offered a very nice retirement package. All he would have to do is stay here another 5 years. He turned that down. This was about going home. And I get it. I respect it. That's where like I said, that's his dream job. He wants to go back there. That's fine. Arkansas is, and some fans feel like they've improved and they're going to be just fine now.
Wes, last thing, and I know you got other things to do, including the rest of your job, but do you feel like that Calipari might go back to his old school ways and style that he played at UMass or at Memphis or early on at Kentucky, and maybe the 40 minutes of hell that Arkansas was known for in the past? Do you feel like he might revert back to that there? I would think the fan base would love that. They want to win, but they would love that.
Yeah. When I think of Kentucky back when he first got there, I think of those long,
angular,
athletic,
yeah.
Yes, and they were so hard to score on. And then if you got a good shot and you missed it, they always got the rebound. Or if you got a shot off, they blocked it. And that was missing this year in the last couple of years. Their defense this year was terrible, guys. I mean, that Kentucky-Arkansas game where Arkansas scored like 108 and Kentucky scored 114, something like that. There were times his guys looked so disinterested in defense, it was laughable. Like an Arkansas guy would drive and the Ole defense, they would just open up and let them go to the basket. It's like, I'm just going to the net so I can get the ball out and we can get down the court. It was bad. There was no effort to play defense. That's got to stop. But Coach Cal knows that. And I saw a good interview afterwards where he said he's having to do some reflecting, and he realizes he may have to change the way he does things, and whether it's the one and done, solely one and done, or maybe hitting the portal more, getting some older guys. But I think there's no doubting he's a great coach. He knows he didn't forget how to coach. He realizes what it takes to win championships. UConn won that championship. Look, their offense was great. They won that because of defense. Their defense was outstanding. They locked Purdue's guards down, and Edey got his, but nobody else scored. That defense wins, and he knows that. And I expect the defense to return like he had in Kentucky in his first 10 years there.
Wes, great job. I'm glad that I saw some national writers. Not that you needed this, because you are, like you said, you stand by what you've done over your career, but saw a lot of that people were saying, hey, by the way, we need to go back to who's the one that started this mess. And I use mess in a fun-loving term. Wes Moore's the one that had this first, and he needs to get a little bit more credit. Good for you. Congratulations. Yeah, it makes a difference when you have the right sources you built up over your career. Thanks for getting on with us today, and good luck with the rest of your day, and enjoy tomorrow.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. It was fun talking with you.
You too. Wes Moore, Fox 16 in Little Rock. Also, the Buzz radio station does a great job there with covering Arkansas. And you always, man, he's right. You might have locked up, you might have even heard it from the horse's mouth. You might have heard it from somebody at the school. You might have heard it from somebody that's family, of the name of whoever the coach or whatever might be. And you still, when you go to click like that, what happens is that you're right. You know you're right. Your sources are great. And then what happens because of social media is you start to have people question you because they don't want to hear that. Or they just don't believe you. Or because it doesn't come from somebody like whoever XYZ National, that it can't be. Screw that. He had it. He did a great job with it. Calipari tomorrow introduced at Arkansas. And now Kentucky will continue their coaching search. We'll have a couple of other looks into this. I'm happy for Wes. If Calipari gets a new lease on life or whatever else. Mike Bean, who's a big KU fan, asked about Musselman. Was he any good? All right, let me define that. 3 consecutive trips to the Sweet 16. They did not play well this past year. They weren't good at all. And he had 2 consecutive back-to-back trips to the Elite Eight. When Baylor won the national title in 21, Villanova gave him trouble, and Arkansas was at least around, where they destroyed everybody else. But, yeah, they were pretty good. Now he's at, like, we now know the history there with Musselman in California, so that makes sense. Now, is that good? For some places, maybe not good enough, but he's now at USC, and it all started because SMU fired Rob Lanier that brought in Enfield, that then USC Musselman, and now Arkansas Calipari, and whatever happens with the domino effect with what Kentucky does with their replacement when that time comes. This is 365 Sports. TexasBeefHouse.com, April 25th. Man, I was so glad that I reached out to Aaron Duvall, Samantha Duvall, when I was in East Texas a couple of weekends ago, and I was like, damn it, why I can't come here and not go out and say hi to them, and I had not been to their factory or their business or their ranch there are those alpha, those are the Angus bulls, and man, they got a bunch of them, and that's where they hang out. That's in the house in the background is Samantha Duvall, the marketing director of TexasBeefHouse.com. I went inside their office of their showroom, and inside the freezer, and boxes and boxes and boxes of product. And Samantha gave me a couple of New York strips. I gave them to my buddy Eric Horton in Tyler. Beef auctions coming up on April 25th. Also, buy their 28-pound Wagyu hamburger patty family bundle and get bacon and flat iron steak for free. You can go online, TexasBeefHouse.com. That will pop up on the home screen. It will say, click to buy. Why haven't you already done that? Ending April 22nd or while supplies last. Again, buy 28-pound of Wagyu hamburger patty family bundle and get bacon and flat iron steak for free. Flat iron steak, you can use that for fajitas. You can use it for stir fry. You can have it just as you want. It's delicious. And that auction coming up April 25th, both in person and also online. The Duvall family, TexasBeefHouse.com, with their farm-raised Wagyu beef, cattle for you, from their family, from their ranch to your plate at TexasBeefHouse.com. Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com. I know business is rolling along, and you've got a special right now that involves Wagyu hamburger patties, but something extra special with that.
So we've got a deal going on right now that if you buy our family bundle, the 28-pound Wagyu hamburger patty bundle, we're going to throw in some of our beef bacon and our flat iron steak for free. And flat iron steak, as our family, our whole Duvall family, that is one of our favorite steak, and it's not a well-known steak. This is is something that's in our auction. So we want people to try this flat iron prior to, and that way, whenever it comes time for our auction on April 25th, you have your chance to bid on the beef, the entire case of flat iron.
I've used flat iron steak as well. It's a unique piece of beef, obviously, and everything Wagyu, farm-raised Wagyu beef, TexasBeefHouse.com.
There's two different ways that we eat it. You can either grill it like you grill a normal steak and eat it like that, or another thing that I like to do in our family is we make it in a stir fry. So we slice it up in little thin pieces, put it on the stove with some coconut oil, blanch some broccoli, and we eat it as a little stir fry with steak and broccoli.
My mom did that too with flat iron steak. TexasBeefHouse.com, just outside of Tyler and White House, the Duvall family and the ranch. Farm-raised Wagyu beef at TexasBeefHouse.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33. Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
I see some of you in the chat room have been discussing your picks to win the Masters. It is Masters Week. Every year, and I've done this for a long, long time, and incredibly fortunate to go to 6 consecutive Masters appearances, not as a player, but as a fan, and saw some incredible memories. Mickelson, Tiger, and Mickelson my first 3 years. Mickelson's first ever Masters, his first ever major. Remember how he was always tantalizing people. And then slammed that driver in the left on 18 with a nice lead, and he always would just tickle you and then break your heart if you liked him. And then Tiger with a rain delayed, I believe, final round ended up having 6 birdies in a row at one point, got himself back in, the chip in on 16. I was at that Masters, and I was in the fairway, by the way, on 15. When Tiger chipped in on 16, as I was trailing the massive amount of people, the mob that was following him around, and also not Rocco Mediate, that was a U.S. Open. Oh, my God, he went back-to-back years where he almost won a major and didn't get it. Chris DeMarco. So here are a couple of the Masters. We'll have Rob Bolton tomorrow with the tour picks and also the fantasy picks that we'll have with Craig Paul, Emery, Garrett. Are you doing that?
I can. I'm not a big golf person, but I can do it.
We'll have that tomorrow. Rob Bolton starts with us about 3:25 tomorrow. Here are some of the key names for the Masters that Mickelson, by the way, is in the 9:40 time period or whatever that might be. I did not see his list on this specific tweet, but you have the tee times and the players. You go out early on Thursday, you're going to play in the afternoon on Friday. If you play in the afternoon on Thursday, you're going to play mid-morning on Friday. So there are the tee times. Cantley, Lee, and Fowler. Matsuyama, he won it. Zalatoris, of course, was playing great last year. Then he got shut down. He walked, apparently, and played a practice round with Tiger yesterday. Justin Thomas, boy, he has not been very good. Has not played well. Rahm, his first major with LIV. Also, Fitzpatrick.
He's already trying to shake things up there, too.
Yeah, he has. I think he wants to do. I think he has the ability to at least get people to listen. Then you have Scheffler, McIlroy, and Schauffele. My God, what a great threesome that is. Rory has never won. He's trying to win the career Grand Slam. Remember, had that one lead. I remember He was on 10 tee box the final round and duck hooked the drive into the backyard of somebody on that long downhill ski slope of a par 4 that, to me, is one of the most beautiful holes in the course that you really don't ever get enough of a view of. Then Wyndham Clark, Hovland, and then also Smith, Cameron Smith. Woods, Day, and Homa. Tiger. He's going to bring. He last year made the cut and then did not finish because his leg. Don't do it.
He said he can win if everything comes together, which means he can win if his leg miraculously heals.
And I could shoot 75 or better Thursday morning if I drive the ball well, I hit my irons crisply, and I putt well, and my short game's good.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's just.
Here's the thing. I love him. I'm going to buy some of the new stuff. I've already got a reminder when it comes out Sunday, his new brand. But he gets a lot of attention now. It could be the Buick Open. He gets a lot of attention as, again, he moves the needle. People get mad at Tiger, and yet he's not the one doing that. He didn't tell people to follow him around in the practice round yesterday with Zalatoris. But there's a lot of, he's playing well, he's healthy. Those hills at Augusta National with his right leg basically being like a stick, I don't know. I know that there are times I wonder if he takes himself out of tournaments because he's hurting, yes. But if he was winning or leading or in the mix, would he withdraw? So I'm a little bit worried about that as a narrative. Harman, Koepka, and Kim. Paul, why is that a great threesome, or could that be a nightmare for Brooks Koepka? I'm going to test you here, your FSU Seminole.
I don't know. I mean, other than the fact that Koepka either dominates in these things or he goes home on Friday.
Last year, looked like he was going to win it, and then all of a sudden, Rahm flipped him. So Brian Harman won the British Open, the Open Championship. If you watch him, he is a waggler. What does that mean?
Oh, yeah, he takes too long.
Oh, my God.
No.
I mean, I remember when Sergio took heat up at, Bethpage, the New York fans up there, because he just hit it.
Well, somebody yelled out, and they did it on a SportsCenter promo, was just hit the ball already, Sergio.
Yep.
And
so Harman is very methodical.
Now,
he's also a hell of a player. He hits the ball very, very accurately. He's a modern left-handed Jim Furyk, where he's very precise with his irons, putts the ball well.
I would say that Koepka's issue wasn't so much that DeChambeau was just taking a long time. It's that DeChambeau and he don't get along.
But they also joined Liv at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, not quite. He came in later.
But that DeChambeau, he and DeChambeau, that doesn't mean they still don't get along.
Two big egos.
Yeah, two big egos. They didn't get along. And so when you already don't like a guy, and look, this probably happened to guys, if you've played, golf with someone that oh, yeah, my friend Harv is coming. And you're like, oh, great.
Yeah.
And then you don't like Harv, and then you don't like the way that Harv plays golf and all this. But if you liked Harv, you would be like, it's just Harv taking a long time. But because Bryson DeChambeau
they're both competing for the same crown.
They're kind of and they're both, big egos, and DeChambeau's a, classically angry person. Then
he's not angry.
He's angry. He's an angry man.
DeChambeau?
Yes, he's an angry man.
I just think he's a weird duck.
Yeah, and I think that weirdness comes from that he has ingested a ton of anger in his life. And,
he played at SMU. He's a great golfer. He tried to, take golf and turn it into the Rubik's Cube, and it worked. And then, of course, But Koepka is just okay, it's a major. Yeah. Different than playing where they were in Florida last week. Last week he was 7 over, didn't give a damn.
With Liv, that's why, you think about it in the way that he is, look, when you see me playing on the TV, that's when I play golf kind of a thing. That's perfect for him and Liv. He's married to a supermodel, all these things. Brooks Koepka.
Wait a minute. Almost every one of them is married to a supermodel.
None of them, with the category of where Jenna Sims is. He's got the ranking supermodel. She's here as far as who gets paid for being hot the most. Jenna Sims does. And that, like...
Boy, are you not giving someone... Dustin Johnson with Gretzky?
No. Look, I'm telling you, Jenna Sims walks into a modeling
Ricky
contract.
Fowler with the girl that was the pole vaulter that was a meme?
Hey.
Go look her up.
I know who you're talking about. I'm just telling you that, like, she's a Victoria's Secret angel. That means her price point is, like, here comparatively to everyone else. She's in the Giselle roster. That's where she is. And so, you know, it doesn't surprise me that he would want to play 54 holes and just get paid no matter what happens.
Giselle lost Brady.
What? Giselle lost Brady. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Koepka. He was playing great last year, did not win it, but it was a hell of a run for him last year. That was a big storyline because it was the first major since LIV had begun. Spieth, he won it in 2015, and I remember the flare. Oh, my God, he's going to pass Nicklaus with 6 or 7. No, he hasn't won it since 15. He's had a couple of opportunities. Remember the one year he dunked a couple in the water on, what was it, the par 3 12th? Amen corner. Just threw up on himself. Thigala Oberg, a hell of a player. Then Dustin Johnson, Morikawa, who's kind of a mess right now. And then Tommy Fleetwood, who's just, I like watching him play. So there we are with the tee times. Mickelson again was, I didn't see him on this specific tweet. There's probably 10 or 12 tweets, but there you are with those. Now, Garrett, who I've never thought of as much of a golf fan, but knows that I love it. It's the week of the Masters. He's a sports fan. He put this one up in our group text. Front office sports with this baby. I can see Kim Coulter and retired stockbroker doing this. The Masters has opened up the map and the flag. First and only hospitality experience outside of Augusta National. Now, I'll tell you this. This place has changed around Augusta National. It used to be there were some hospitality, and then some people started buying houses, and then they started tearing them all down and flattening them with a bigger parking lot area. But there are some amazing hospitality-type events, and I've been in a couple of them over the years. Very fortunate. Tickets for the week, $17,000. Tournament access, which means you get to go inside the gates of Augusta National. Premium dining, which is probably prime rib, big fat plump, things like shrimp, etc. Outdoor garden where you can just hang out, have a cocktail, Bloody Mary, and the merchandise shop, which I don't know that means you get discounts on it or they just hand you stuff.
So,
I don't know.
Is this...
It's sold out, by the way.
And is this open all year or just during the...
For the week.
The term, just for the week.
Tickets for the week. Now, you may go, my God, the first year I ever went to Augusta National was in 2004. My buddy Eric and his father-in-law, Burley, who's passed away, were going to go. He got a call at the very last second that the guy that supplied those tickets had to go to Argentina on some on some oil business. So he called Eric and said, I got one other 4-day pass. Eric was kind enough to let me have that. I went with him. And at the time, those tickets for a 4-day pass were about $400 a day. A day. So $1,500 to $1,800 for the week. The next year, about the same. Then in 2007, the tickets exploded to almost 1,000 or more a day. So a lot of that goes into that chunk of 17,000. I don't know what it is now. 1,500 a day, 1,400 a day, 1,200 a day, and I'm sure that the eBay or whatever else brokers, $17,000. There are guys who fly in on their own Lears. That's not a big deal to them. They might bring in 8 to 12 clients and business partners and sponsors, etc. So there we are with one hell of a week.
Speaking of tickets, there's also this little gem.
Oh, this is the one I sent. Okay, Paul, read this. Don't stop reading it. Read it from start to finish.
Okay, hold on. I got 2 tickets for the 2024 Masters for Christmas, both top holiday hospitality admissions. The person that got them for me didn't realize it was going to be on the same day as my wedding. If you're interested, I'm looking for someone to take my place. It's at St. Michael's Church, Orlando at 3 p.m. The bride's name is Nicole. She's 5'4", about 115. Good cook, too. She'll be the one in the white dress.
Now, look at the Twitter. It's tour spelled wrong. Tuor. And I'd love to know how many people, if that happened, it was your wedding day, and that happened, how many would you put that out for somebody? By the way, if you're interested, she's 5'2" or 5'4", 115 pounds, a good cook, too. She'll be the one in the white dress. I thought that was funny as hell.
Yeah. Look, as a person who recently, I wouldn't say I planned a wedding. I was part of planning a wedding. I had a role to play in it. My wife has always wanted to get married in the fall, and I had to tell her that the one trump card I had was can't do it. Can't do it in the fall. And she's like, I know. It's just I've always wanted to, and I'm like,
see, that's not fair. Let's stop you right there. I know, but I've always wanted to. In other words, she didn't immediately just give in.
No, I mean, she knew. She knew. It was just, it was brought up to me a couple times.
Would she have done that if it was during the Final Four?
Oh, God, no. I mean, I know there's yeah. Look, I can tell you this. If we had accidentally done, well, during the Final Four this weekend, I was doing comedy. So I got to watch the first game, and then I didn't get to see until the last 10 minutes of the second game. So I had agreed to do that show thinking it was on Friday and not Saturday. And then Amanda's asking me hey, what day is your show? And I'm like, oh, it's on the 7th or whatever it was. Well, 6th. And she's like, you mean Saturday? I said, no, Friday the 6th. She's like, Friday is the 5th. And I was like, crap.
Oh, damn.
And so it was too late to back out of it. And so, I did the show, and thankfully Connecticut kind of won by a comfortable margin, so I didn't feel like I missed any kind of good game. But it was one of those things where I need her to do that. But if she had done that, I promise you, if we had gotten to printing out the invitation, she's like, no, it's Final Four. And she didn't even know if Kansas is going to be in it, but there's no way. How do we
just the opportunity that they
walk? I could just see her walking down the aisle at 3:45 p.m. going
yeah. Oh, you would have gotten married at 11 o'clock.
Let's just go. Well, we got married. We got married at 9 a.m. Hawaii time anyway. So
yeah. So a lot of you love that. JG Neolardo, 5'4" is just about the fun size, and and right
I can't believe
at
you read that out loud.
About 5'9" is concerning. Oh dear. Depends on her picture.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Kim Coulter, can you send me the link to that option, please? I will. I'll send that to you. It's sold out. Kim's got guys, though. Kim's got some guys. All right.
Could you imagine just getting, I would just love to be at a place. And I think the model for this in our world is Dave Portnoy, where you can just decide to go to a thing on Friday that's on Friday, whatever, whatever thing you're doing. You can just be you know what? What is that Lakers-Knicks game in L.A.? Oh, it's tonight. All right, let's go.
Yep.
Where are you right now? I'm in Boston.
Yep.
All right, let's go.
I'll see you in 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll see you in 3 hours. So there we are with that. My battery just died. I guess my power's unplugged. If you guys would ever help me get a laptop.
Smokey.
We have tried.
Here's the problem. You are trying to find a gently used laptop for a discount, which I understand. I'm a bargain shopper myself. However, in this regard, you're making a 5-year decision. Maybe a longer decision if you get the right kind. I've sent you the link to apple.com. I would be happy to actually sit through and build out a computer for you that you could buy, and then we wouldn't have these problems with this steam-powered piece of junk.
If we had any kind of continuity below the set, behind here where the plugs and all that are,
look,
nothing would be unplugged. I know, but that's so small.
Well, there's slightly bigger ones. It's not as small as you think, and we can adjust we can give you the old guy
So is that
zoom.
the 5'2" height?
Yeah. No, this is not the fun. This is not fun size.
That's not the
This
fun
is the
size?
normal size you'd get. Emory has the same one, right? See?
They're so small, though.
You feel
And
like
all
it
the
is.
numbers are different.
This is there's no number pad on the side.
Yeah, I never use that anyway.
Okay. Listen. Lean and mean.
Wait a minute. Enter. Shift. Backspace.
It's almost exactly the same.
Is that what delete means?
Yeah.
Okay.
And your function keys are
So
actually
all
up
of
here.
this, which I never use, would not be necessary, so I'd still have the same keypad.
Yes.
Alt.
Alt is well, it's function here. But
Yeah, see, those are new words I'd have to learn like Chinese to me. All right, when we come back, Craig, by the way, went to Baylor football practice today. Do you have the Baylor alumni barbecue
I have the
link
right
that's
here.
Blake Blackmar sent? So the spring game is coming up on the 20th, a week from Saturday. The green and gold game at McLean Stadium. And Blake Blackmar, former Baylor offensive tackle, who's become an unbelievable chef and cook. There is an alumni barbecue cook-off. And they're looking, if you're an alumni who watches, and a lot of you do from around the country, but also if you want to be a part of the barbecue cook-off, contact me, or you can go to BaylorBears.com, and there is a link to the Baylor Alumni Barbecue Cook-Off. If you're interested, you can't find it, then text me, tweet at me, DM me, or whatever else. And this is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe, 1943, they opened up their doors. Man, I'm old. 1959 was I was born, but they opened up their doors much earlier than that, and they are still bigger, better, faster, and stronger than ever before because they continue to grow through whatever the economy, the good times or the tough times economically around the country, no matter who's in charge of the White House or Congress. They just kept getting better. And now have their brand new facility, which I can probably not use brand new anymore. It's been open since December of 2022. It is a massive building. It has a fantastic, I guess you could say, distribution center. So what was always efficient, now they have more room, more bays to get the product they have, pipe, steel, and metal, to you, to your pickup truck if it's just a little bit of stuff, to your trailer if it's a little bit larger, heavier, and then even if it's an 18-wheeler or a hauler, they can do that too. Pioneer Steel and Pipe since 1943 on Loop 340 and Highway 6 just east of I-35 in Waco.
It's Dodge Power Shot Days at Allen Samuels in Waco. Experience the adrenaline-pumping performance and cutting-edge technology of Dodge. From the sleek and stylish 2023 Charger to the performance and muscle of a Challenger to the bold and rugged Durango. During Dodge Power Shot Days, we're offering amazing deals and special incentives that will make driving a new Dodge even more exhilarating. Don't miss out on these exclusive savings. Visit Allen Samuels in Waco today and unleash the power of Dodge.
Come by. Let's be friends.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, so Bear Alexander, hell of a high school player, highly recruited player, could have gone anywhere in the country he wanted. There was perhaps some baggage, at least maybe, does he ever stay anywhere? And then he goes to Alabama. He then goes to USC. Well, guess what? He's in the portal.
He went to Georgia first.
Georgia,
and
I'm
then
sorry.
USC, yeah.
Georgia, and then USC. Now look at this. He went to Terrell High School, which is a school right to the east of Dallas. Then he went to Denton Ryan, then IMG in Florida, and then Skyline in Dallas. He went to 4 high schools.
And I believe Skyline was the one where he couldn't get into and had to go to IMG.
So, I mean, this is a red flag. Hell of a player. Wish that Matt Rule would get in. I don't know if he'd want him. I know any coach would want that talent. And yet, last year he was hit and miss. Maybe Roger Dodger can tell us whether or not he made much of an impact. Hell of a player. Like, highly recruited alpha. And yet now he's in the portal. So this would be basically 4 high schools. And like you said, Garrett, he couldn't get into Skyline from Ryan. So then he went to IMG. And then Georgia, USC, and now he's about to be at his 3rd school. And there are coaches who are banging up his phone, salivating over him.
Yeah, 7 schools in 6 years or whatever it is, in 7 years. Somebody thinks that they can get the most out of him, but he's got to figure out why he is prone to wander so much. Like, what is going on with him that makes him want to go from here to here to here, or what causes all of this? But
how much of that do you think might have been? We think you probably need to go find somewhere else to play.
Maybe it is. I don't know. It's just like, I don't know enough about him to say it, but look, eventually you've got to stop, and find a place, because going from Georgia to USC to now somewhere else none of this has made him a better football player. That's all that's going to make it like.
Do you know that how talented? You know what? And he has to go to the combine and answer questions from those. They'll know all the reasons, right?
Yes.
Garrett, if he said he's going to go play at LSU, what would you say?
At this point, if you would have asked me that question 2 years ago, I would say, hell yeah, bring him. But right now, I don't want him near my team because I don't know what he's going to bring consistently. There's times when you watch him play, it looks like he checks out. You mentioned last year at USC. I think if you go back and look at the tape, the biggest play he made was one that cost USC a game. So the talent is there. Nobody has ever really been able to tap into it. I think for me personally, as somebody who covered recruiting and covered him, he's the most dominant high school player I've ever seen. But it's just never translated to college. And I think part of it goes into not buying into a program, not staying there, not properly getting developed. And also you go to USC with Alex Grinch, the situation where that was going to be a hot mess anyway. And we know Alex Grinch wasn't somebody known for developing. So I don't know where it benefited him. I think more of the accolades for the USC was like he got a flat, then downtown. It was more of the NIL perks. But at this point, if you're a legit contender and you're a coach looking at him, I would be very weary of bringing him to my program.
So I don't have the audio. We can't play the audio. But Dan Hurley was asked the question about how they recruit players. I've heard Gino Auriemma. And again, it's not hard for them to get who they want. But that wasn't always the case when Hurley arrived at UConn. But Gino Auriemma was going to get everybody and anyone he wanted to, and maybe he'd lose somebody to Notre Dame or Tennessee when Pat Summitt was there, Baylor with Kim Mulkey, and a couple of other schools. But he got pretty much everything he wanted. There's a reason why he won, been to 13 championship games and won, 12 or so. But those guys even, here's what, a school like that or a school that, you don't need to take a risk. You're getting that type of talent most of the time anyway. Mm-hmm. So Georgia didn't even need to take that risk, although they did. Was it worth it? He's not even there anymore. Did USC, was it worth it? And at some point, when you look in the mirror, no matter what, you have to look in the mirror, and Bear Alexander, maybe he's a young man that's really a good kid, but there's something missing there, like you said.
Well, there's something like he's got an emptiness somewhere that he can't fill by wherever he is. And I don't know what that is. And so maybe some of these guys, and social media has made this easier to spot, and it's a phenomenon. I think a lot of guys love being recruited. They love it. Love being recruited. But the thing is that once you commit, even though the transfer portal exists and NIL exists, and there's going to be some recruitment there and some lobbying to make sure you stay there, eventually those people who make those deals with you, those businesses that make those NIL deals with you, the collectives that make the NIL deals with you, expect you to perform and be worth it. The coaches, especially. I left them out. But all the people who are recruiting you to do something want you to perform for them. Otherwise, you are not worth it to them anymore, and eventually it just becomes, look, how many guys, there's tons of guys in the NFL who got 100 chances because they had unbelievable natural talent, but at the end of it was, eventually it's just what's this guy going to do? I'm not even going to give that, he's been in the league for 7 years, he's played for 9 teams, he's getting the veteran minimum, and that is even too much on the salary cap for me to deal with somebody who's going to be a rotational player. And Bear Alexander not working out at 2 different places and now going to a third, more power to him. But, he's not someone who has done anything to where this would be like a Cam Ward going to Miami. This is a guy who's totally on potential. He's had some plays. I'm sure he's looked pretty good at times. But for the most part, I haven't heard Bear Alexander's name mentioned with holy crap, what a great game he had. And believe me, I would. It's what we do, and so I don't know. I don't know that they're, what is going on with him, but eventually you have to stay somewhere and perform for them.
I'm telling you, at the Combine, when they have those one-on-ones with teams, there might be 15 teams that don't even want to talk to him. I know he's got the size, the quickness, the quick twitch. He's very good. In the chat room, and we have Scott Mitchell, former Utah quarterback, their color analyst for football games. He's going to join us in the next segment. Quick hit here. And a lot of you are fans from Texas to Oklahoma to LSU to Florida to whoever else. Do you want your school to get Bear Alexander? Do you want him on your football team this fall? Curious. Because you know what the deal is, that maybe he gets it when he's at your place. It, to me, reminds me of this. I had a basketball coach tell me one time, no matter how clumsy, no matter how lack of unproductive, if you get a kid who's 6'11", 7 feet or taller in a basketball coach, and they see him, even if he can't play a lick, you think you can fix him. One of it's your ego, and you think all of a sudden he's going to click, and most of the time he's not. Mm-hmm. And you wonder, and I'm using that as an example, coaches see that, man, they start drooling.
Well, coaches are always like, I can be the one. I can get through it. They want the challenge. They want the ability to do it, and most of it's altruistic. That's the other thing is, and sometimes that idea and pursuit can cloud your judgment. I think it absolutely did. If you read Art Briles' book, he said, I'm in the kid saving business. And sometimes when you're in the kid saving business, you can't I'm just trying to help the kid. Well, yeah, but he's got to help you too. He's got to do his part. And when he's doing things he shouldn't be doing, you can't be in the kid saving business anymore. That kid has to be in the him saving business, in the me saving business.
Well, because a kid saving business could also mean you are going to get fired because of that.
Exactly. So there's a delicate line, and I do think a lot of coaches believe that. Like, I truly believe, and I'm not letting Art off the hook here. I've been very clear on my opinions of it, but that Art Briles, he let his heart bleed too much for guys and didn't bottom line it, and that's where it's, well, I'm just trying to help. Like, I remember hearing, like, with Sam Ukawachu, like, he was like, well, I just heard he was homesick. Well, I mean, not everybody told you the details there, and it would have taken one phone call to find out what the details were of, yeah, he's homesick enough to where he's being violent around, campus. So, like, he's got another problem that's not just homesickness. So those are things you see, and coaches want that. They want that badly, and I understand that, but eventually he's going to have to, and I assume he probably has, especially through the spring with the new defensive coordinator at USC, met the, like, all right, this is where we expect results, and then he's not getting recruited anymore, and he can go somewhere else and feel
somebody
that
said if he's
rush
not a
again.
cancer, but I don't know what the story is. I don't know if he likes to be told what to do. He might be a hell of a, I don't know. But there's a red flag there because of the amount of schools he's gone to. Maybe there's people around him that are also giving him bad advice. Could be his inner circle. Could be somebody that's a runner for him. By the way, one quick note from Baylor practice. Kurt Denneker, who was Ohio University, an offensive line transfer who has not been practicing at spring drills, just got the note that he is at practice for the first time since the opening week. Baylor cannot afford to lose many bodies. They surely can't afford to lose anybody on the offensive line. When we come back, Scott Mitchell, the big lefty, played at Utah, played for Detroit and other teams in the NFL. He is the Utah football color analyst. He is next on 365 Sports.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor Alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor Alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor Alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Thank you for calling your local Marco's Pizza. We're turning up the heat with our new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Fresh, house-made dough is topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. At only $5.99, this limited-time product is a hot deal. Add it to your order while you can. A Marco's team member will be with you shortly.
Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it, and that offer on the Reaper Cheesy Bread is available right now at any of the 5 Marco's Pizza locations in Waco, including Belmead, China Spring, Robinson, Woodway, and Hewitt. Order online at marcos.com. Call for a pickup or delivery. Marco's Pizza is turning up the heat with their all-new Reaper Cheesy Bread with fresh, hot, house-made dough topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers, and only $5.99 and for a limited time only. Marco's Pizza, the fastest-growing pizza brand in America, 5 locations in Waco, and the new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, PettyClinicLowT.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Scott Mitchell, former Utah star quarterback, NFL veteran, also the color analyst for Utah football as they are running through spring drills. And, oh, by the way, their first year in the Big 12 after all of the last 3 summers of drama. Scott joins us. Paul Catalina, I'm David Smoak on 365 Sports. Scott, man, is it, even though I know Utah fans would rather the Pac-12 held together, I think we would too, but is it nice not to have drama of where they might be next fall?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's nice to be in a conference and really be in a conference, I think, that cares about football. I'm not sure that the Pac-12 at the end of the day actually really it was the most important thing in the conference. And so it's great to be in a conference. It's great to be in a conference that, Utah's ready to compete for a championship in right now, that they have a chance to win the conference in the beginning of the season or this season, their first year. So I think it's really good where Utah is right now, just having that comfort and confidence of being in a good conference in the Big 12.
Scott, how is Cam Rising going in his recovery, which was a devastating knee injury that I think people didn't even quite get the scope of until after the season when he kind of said, look, this was probably never going to happen outside of a miracle. How is that going along?
Yeah, everything that I hear, and actually, believe it or not, I'm actually at practice right now. But he's just got this, along with his physical ability. There's just something about him as a great leader, and guys believe in him. And on both sides of the ball, I think you just feel like if you have a chance because of your quarterback, everyone's play is elevated. And from everything that I've seen and heard, he looks great. I mean, initially when he started spring practice, there's rust, which you could expect, but he's really kind of rounded into Cam Rising shape, and he'll be ready for the season.
I Googled his name, and the first thing I saw was Utah quarterback Cam Rising says he's pretty darn close to 100% after first spring practice, and it made me so happy because you're right. He was the heart and soul. Doesn't mean they didn't have other players, but he kind of who you thought about other than Kyle Whittingham, the football coach. What are some of the biggest questions they have to at least hope to answer or know more about finishing when they're done with spring football?
Yeah, really the biggest question is in the secondary, losing, the 2 players they did, Cole Bishop and Sione Bake. Those guys were great players. And to lose that experience, but they've got a lot of guys. And then also, they lost the starter, JT Broughton. But the guys so far is Jeremiah Vaughn and these Teo Johnson is another guy who's done well. Jonathan Hall, Nate Ritchie played some last year at safety. They have guys with some experience and a lot of athleticism. And then Smith Snowden is that kind of nickel back who got a lot of time last year. They just don't have the same experience, so it's going to probably take a little bit of time for those guys to get up to speed. And, this defense is historically just been really good, and they've got players, up front, they're really solid. The linebacker position, really solid, but it's just a little bit of that secondary. And then on offense, it's, until Cam Rising plays and is healthy and feels confident that he can play, it's still a question mark. And he looks good, and he's had plenty of time to recover. But the wide receiver situation, I think, is really interesting. They've got some players. They really do. With some of these transfer additions, Brad Keithie's back. And they've got great backs who can come out of the backfield, actually. and run routes. So explosively, I wouldn't be surprised to see Utah more of a team like that than the traditional Kyle Whittingham run first 3 yards in a cloud of dust and play to your defense.
Scott, how do you feel about the other quarterbacks though? Is there potential there? Do you think they maybe need to bring in a veteran transfer, just someone who is maybe a little more equipped to go in case Cam Rising struggles in his return, at least to health?
They didn't have a lot of experience last year with the quarterbacks they had in Nate Johnson, Bryson Barnes. They also didn't have a lot of ability either. And it's kind of that way now in that they don't have a lot of experience with Brandon Rose and Isaac Wilson, but there's certainly a lot more talent. And you can win with talent. Guys, you can kind of cover up for guys for a little while when a talented guy is learning and growing, especially if you have a lot of talent around him, which Utah does. And so, they'd like to get a veteran guy. I mean, that's a hard ask for someone to come in and go, yeah, we need you to be a real experienced guy that's not going to play. I just don't know if that player exists out there. But they are better at the backup position at quarterback, talent-wise, than they were a year ago, for sure.
Scott, how would you define Kyle Whittingham? What makes him special?
I was thinking about this earlier today, actually. And Coach Whittingham is he just has this great ability to get the maximum effort and value and talent out of all the players. He's a great football coach. You go to watch practice, and there's so much about fundamentals and about doing things the right thing, about maximizing the reps you get. And he's just done a brilliant job with that. And I think part of it is, you go to BYU, you coach at BYU, you coach at Utah most of his career. He's been at Utah and you have to look at project athletes. You're not going to compete recruiting against these top programs. And so he's had so much experience through the years kind of projecting guys, looking for these young puppies with big bodies, and you just watch them grow into these bodies. And there's an art to it that they've really, I think, mastered here at Utah, just saying, and then, going to a Power 5 conference, you get players, you get more talent. You get those edge players, those, skill players that are faster, more athletic, combined with that really good development program. And you've just seen some really, really consistent success for his whole time that he's been in this, head coach at Utah.
You mentioned Sione Vaki earlier, and he was the guy who kind of shot life into the team last year when he moved over to running back, and he was just really exciting. He left early, and I think a lot of people think that he shouldn't have. Who do they have on the team right now that can shoot similar life into the program?
I'm one of those that thought Sione should stay, and just to give him more time to kind of develop and marinate that idea of being a two-way player, and maybe he's I don't know where he ends up in the NFL. He's talent. He's a sleeper to me. He's a guy I think someone's going to be really happy with down the road. As far as a spark guy, oh man, I really. It really is the spark to this whole program. I hate to say it, it's Cam Rising. I mean, I know you're looking for Landon King looks good at tight end. Brant Keithy looks good. These new wide receivers, Singer and some of these transfers, those guys look really good. Defensively, that I think that spark is probably going to be a linebacker, Karenni Reed, Lander Barton. Those guys are. I mean, Utah's got a lot of leadership. They've got a lot of talent. They certainly, their record last year was not indicative of what this team is. Cam Rising will make a huge difference this year.
Scott, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. What do you think about the new communication device in the quarterback's helmet? I
think it's about 30 years too late. I mean, really, it's so dumb. I would look at those boards on all the, it's just stupid. It's like, my first year in Detroit was the first year they actually had the communication device. It was a godsend. It was wonderful. And why college football hadn't done it before now, I have no idea.
So, when Utah has had a great run and still very much involved in the Pac-12 when it was still a part of as a conference, but they're really good. I said this to Coach Whittingham last fall. I heard somebody describe Utah football as a rolling ball of razor blades, angry razor blades, and he kind of liked that.
Okay.
Would you describe them as that?
There is a nastiness to this program. It's a hard nose. It is Coach Whittingham. He's a relentless pursuer of just never giving up and never quitting, and just you're going to be a tough player when you come play at Utah. It's like, maybe it's a death by 1,000 paper cuts, I guess, but it's just, I could totally see that.
We still see, and last question for you, and again, thanks for your time. We still see some Utah fans that, man, they're upset because of where others left or the conference is no longer, and that the Big 12 is almost like you're being pulled away from a fire. Has that changed at all now that reality has set in?
Well, you have a lot of schools in the Big 12 that think they can win. They think they've got a shot. There's a lot of you think of the SEC or even some of the Pac-12 schools or the Big Ten. There's a lot of schools they know they have no shot at winning a conference championship. So you're going to get a really, really competitive conference. And if you are, sour milk and just not happy that you're there, man, you can get your butt kicked. And especially with Utah probably being the favorite coming into their first year in the league, there's a big bullseye, and you better show up and you better be happy and excited to be there. And for me, I've always said, if you're Utah and you go to the Big 12, you have to play well.
Mm-hmm.
You have to compete for conference championships every year or be in the conversation. And if you're not, then your relevance in college football moving forward is, as these conferences, I guess, continue to change and what the landscape looks like in the next 10 years, you better win. You better win in the Big 12, and you better win consistently, or you're not going to be considered for future expansion.
Back in the same conference with obviously the rivalry with BYU, but you're right. There's some good football teams. Maybe not name brands that some look at with the way realignments occurred, but it is a week in and week out. It's you better bring your A game, no question about it, and Utah does with Kyle Whittingham. Thank you, Scott. We appreciate your time and enjoy practice.
Yeah, Will. Hey, it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
You too. Scott Mitchell, Utah football color analyst, big lefty, played in the NFL, played at Utah, and also they're in a conference where they take football more seriously.
Yeah. The last time we had him on, I had to ask him the question I always like to ask people who played with Barry Sanders, especially quarterbacks who played with Barry Sanders, is when you handed him the ball, did you ever catch yourself kind of watching the show and going, oh, crap, I better get out of the way? Uh-huh. That's what I would have done. All right, here you go.
Or how about this? They bring in a play, and back then he gets a call. Why are we throwing the ball? Why in the hell, unless we're dumping it off to Barry Sanders, why are we not just giving him the ball every time?
He had that year with Herman Moore and, they had that other receiver too, but Herman Moore had 110 catches or something ridiculous and set the record. So it was Herman Moore and Barry Sanders, and it's been Scott Mitchell went through some. Yeah, Brent Perryman. Yeah. There you go. Nice.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
But don't ask me who played wide receiver for them last year, although they were pretty damn good last year. That's weird. I can remember a name like that from 25 years, 30 years ago, but I can't tell you 4 years ago. Is that onset of
I do the same
65 on May 1st?
I do the same thing. I'm not sure.
I can tell you who played in the 68 World Series.
Well, I couldn't tell you that.
I don't think I could tell you who played in the series 4, 5, or 6 years ago. Astros or Dodgers or who? I don't know. I can tell you the lineup of some of the teams like the Tigers and the Cardinals in 1968. 67 Red Sox Cardinals. I can't tell you like 2004 would have been the Red Sox.
So Royd and Ogletree was here earlier doing triple option with me, and we had this discussion of we wish that the random information in our brain could be used to help someone. I have a lot of random things, and we were talking about like 80s TV theme songs. Like, you name one, I could probably get out a few bars for you, and I did a couple on triple option. Long enough to where we don't get sued.
Yeah, good. That's good.
I'm never that information is not going to be useful in any kind of real life situation. Nobody's going to come and ask you, Smokey, like, quick, Dick Groat's batting average, and
played for the Mets.
Yeah, and he's on the Pirates broadcast now.
Dick Groat or Jerry Groat?
No, Dick Groat.
Dick. Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's like nobody's ever going to come and ask, hey, Roberto Clemente's last at bat. Please help me. This man is dying. It's never going to happen.
Pirates broadcast.
Yeah. I saw it the other day. And I thought that's weird because I saw a tweet because it also coincided with the end of Curb Your Enthusiasm. And he was like a regular joke on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I don't think he is. You sure it's the Pirates?
I think so.
And because if I remember Groat, Grote is how you spelled his name.
No, Dick Groat is Groat.
Okay. The reason because that name at least is familiar to me. If you would have named somebody from
no, that's a different guy. Okay. Never mind. Yeah. So maybe it's his son or something.
But see how I can immediately.
Yeah, because he'd be like, he's 92 years old. He's not on the. And he's dead. He died last year.
He's not calling nothing.
Yeah.
So is it Dick Groat?
Yeah. I mean, he's dead, but yes, Dick Groat is dead.
But I want to see what it first. Okay. Yeah.
But they, on Curb Your Enthusiasm, which ended this week, they had a running thing. He was always doing charities for Groat's disease or Groat syndrome, and they named it after Dick Groat.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was thinking I think his name was Jerry Groat. He was a catcher for some reason, I think, for the Mets. But
yes, he was.
I digress. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. We're not done. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, Hall of Famer John McClain will join us. And his thoughts about I saw where Sheehan put something up about Bear Alexander, the same schools, including Fort Worth Brewer. And I said, it would be worth a documentary or a Netflix or Hard Knocks just hanging around and listening to the teams asking him questions, even if by then he's a high-level talent draft pick.
Yeah.
I mean, the journey is fascinating to me, too. I mean, because you got to know.
By the way, there could be something that not all of the moves were something that he forced. It could have been where he was asked to leave, and or there might have been something or two that affected him. But that is, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's just there's something going on there. And it feels to me like he wants to be wanted, and then once he's there and has to perform, he just wants to go back and be wanted again.
Some people like to be chased.
Yeah.
And then when they're caught or they make a decision, they get bored.
Mm-hmm.
They get bored. So interesting on that. By the way, did anyone watch the video last night? Did you watch the game? UConn, Garrett?
I had a situation. I couldn't watch it, but I saw some of it.
Does anyone remember the situation, Craig just got back from practice, where Dan Hurley
shoved a player?
He forced a timeout, forced the ball to be turned over. The official, they call him high knees, the black official stopped the game, didn't get into it with him, but gave Purdue the ball. I never understood what happened there. I thought he was out of the coaching box. He actually went onto the court a foot or two and was pushing his own player, Cam Spencer, to initiate a play. And the official stopped the game, gave the ball back to Purdue. And I didn't know what happened there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't one of those Big 12 Harkless or whatever his name was getting upset because Scott Drew kneeled halfway or more out of the, he was on the edge of the coach's box and out. Mm-hmm. But he actually shoved Cam Spencer, who's a hell of a player, to initiate action, to run a play. And Sam Vicenzi, one of the funniest things I've ever seen a coach do in its history. So, and some of those guys starring for UConn, they're on their second team or third team. It's part of the game. Craig joins us. Garrett, put his microphone back up. We talked about Bear Alexander. 7, how many schools? He's now transferring again. Third college team. He was with 5 or 4 high school teams. Do you take him if you're a college football coach?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure somebody will who has got a need for what he can bring, but I think you have to definitely question his commitment to your program and what all he's bringing to the table outside of just his natural God-given ability and whatever else comes with that. So just another guy who I feel like we hear more about because of their recruitment than we actually hear about because of what they've done on the field. And now I know he's had a little moment here and there, but yeah, I feel like his story so far to me is somebody who's not paying really close attention is just like, oh, is that the guy that transfers all the time now? Because that's kind of how I read him.
Yep.
The highly ranked guy that transfers a lot. And that could probably cover a lot of names at this point, but that's certainly what strikes me when I think of Bear Alexander. I guess 1B to his colossal mistake at the end of last season, but not that notwithstanding, yeah, he's the guy that transfers a lot at this stage.
I thought it would be interesting to have somebody follow him around if, in fact, he's invited when that time comes to an NFL Combine. Because all 32 teams, if all of them want to talk to him, are going to want to ask him what the hell's been going on. And they would probably know before he answered, like they would know about a broken leg when he was in 4th grade playing Pop Warner football.
Yeah, you know what? And a guy going to 7 schools in 7 years is great for him. That's great for his development as a person and a player. That's perfect for the young
He's not
people.
getting better at anything.
Hell no, he's not. But you'll have somebody argue, well, he's making all this money. And like, okay, if that's the end-all, be-all, which I know for some people it is, I feel bad for those people. Money matters a lot. Don't get me wrong. I could always use more of it. We all could. But, the whole just do everything because of the money reason is a stupid reason to do everything. And, he's going to make a lot of money when all is said and done, but hopefully he's not just banking on that for the rest of his life, and he's thinking, hey, how much could I make in the NFL? And he'll probably still get that chance because of just attributes. But, yeah, he's the guy who transfers a lot at this point. 7 schools in 7 years, counting high school. That's ridiculous. I mean, there's nobody who can sit there with a straight face and go like, yeah, no, that's totally normal, and that's good for people to do 7 schools in 7 years. Nobody's buying that. But you know what? I don't know Bear Alexander. I know, again, the things that I mentioned of what I think of when he comes to mind, but we'll see where he goes now. I mean, he's pretty much taken the tour, so we'll see what's up next for Bear Alexander.
I saw a note. Craig normally would do off the radar Tuesdays and Thursdays, and once football's done, we'll do that again. But the men's championship game, Purdue UConn, $14.8 million, about $3.5 million or so less than the Iowa South Carolina game.
They had stars in the other game, Edey's a star, but how many people know about Donovan Clingan and Tristan Newton? Really, I mean,
and what time in the women's game? Remember, was in the middle of the afternoon on a Sunday.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, it was like 2.
That's a big difference.
Now, but a middle on a Sunday in NFL, that's a great timeline for an NFL game. So it is a good.
So
place.
why wouldn't it be for a March Madness national championship game? I mean, I think with all the people that were paying attention, if you had thrown that bad boy on at like 9:20 or whatever it was, I think they still draw a really healthy number with several million people. But I don't think they get quite what they got. And I'm not making an excuse for the men's ratings. I think the women's game, if you were putting money down, it was a safe bet to bet Caitlin Clark and company were in South Carolina, who I just refer to more as just the team because I think Dawn Staley's the face and that's sort of just the brand. Is they're top to bottom, obviously very good, historic season, and that almost took a back seat to like Caitlin Clark or the LSU drama or whatever. And then it's like, oh yeah, South Carolina's also got, if you couldn't tell, a massive fan base thanks to Dawn Staley. And what she's built up over there. Like, she's really turned that into the new Baylor LSU, like, where they've got just thick as thieves this following. And so they were going to draw good no matter what, but I definitely think they benefited. Like, that game was on, and I was like, great, this will lead me into WrestleMania. This is a nice, like, little appetizer into the rest of the night, whereas last night I'm sitting there going, like, all right, how far are we from tip-off? It's 30 more minutes. It's like 8:45, and I'm sitting there going, got another half hour just to start the game. So not to be old man, get off my lawn, but I do think that impacts it. And even still, late tip-off, they got 14 million people watching, so I think they'll be okay with that. But that's a great thing for the women's game to be able to tout is the 4 million extra or whatever it is they ended up getting.
Yeah, the South Carolina unbeaten part, that kind of was overshadowed almost because of the LSU-Iowa rematch, etc. Speaking of WrestleMania, WWE broke the previous record set by WrestleMania 39 by 79%, 78%. 140-some thousand in attendance at Lincoln Financial Field over 2 nights. The event drew fans from all 50 states, 64 countries worldwide. The viewership was up 41% across both nights versus the record-setting audience of a year ago.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be one of those things where it's like it's the best since last year because of just the way it's going. They're hotter than they've been in about 20 years,
but
so it
when
makes
you're
sense.
Up 39%,
no, that's great. But
huge,
when you're talking like this kind of stuff, it's cool. But it's kind of like some of the stuff we talk about with college sometimes. Like you get so into the weeds on it, it's almost like it takes away from it. Like the TV ratings for games. Like let's just talk about it and that's great that Notre Dame drew 5 million. But I don't want to but let's compare it to the entirety of this conference and why
that's more important than a win or a loss.
Yeah, exactly. That drove me nuts during this last leg of realignment. We were more worried about TV ratings than we were actual product on the field. I will never go that way. I think it's great. I said yesterday, business is as hot as it's been in probably 25 years. And, they're also going to make more money when you're, slapping a Prime logo in the middle of the ring and you've never advertised there before. You're slapping it on the turnbuckles. They've never had advertised. So they're doing a lot of things that just haven't been done that's opening up new avenues of revenue under the Endeavor umbrella, the TKO leadership. And so that's going to contribute to that. I think just being a hot product contributes to that. It's an event. They made it, they're treating it like it's the Super Bowl. And that draws people in, but it's always drawn people from all over the world. It's just at a peak right now, or maybe not a peak. We'll see how high they can take you, but it's just at a really good spot right now. So yeah, they were bragging and have been bragging about all the sellouts and everything, and that's just a sign of healthy business. So that's good, but I don't take too much out of that other than it's a good time to be in pro wrestling or in women's basketball, for that matter as well.
Yep. So we were talking about this, and we got a break. Come back with John McClain. I can remember who played in the World Series probably up until, I would say, for sure up until the early 90s. And then obviously the Rangers when they've been a part of it 3 times. But I can't tell you who was in it 4 years ago. I could guess. Probably the Astros and Dodgers or whoever else. And then Paul brought up who? Jerry Grote, Dick Grote.
Dick Grote.
Former broadcaster for the Pirates. And I mentioned Jerry Grote, former catcher for the Mets, but I can't tell you who's the catcher for the Mets this year. Are you at that point yet?
No, I'm still keeping tabs on everything as much as I can. I guess I could remember Super Bowls up to a certain point, but I kind of just stopped caring about remembering after a certain stage. Yeah. And so I just haven't made a concerted effort, but if you were to ask me the NBA Finals from 3 years ago, I might eventually get it, but it's going to take me a second. Whereas when I was younger, I could rattle off Super Bowl 1 through 25 what the matchups were. But I think that's just I don't have a room left in my brain to continue to keep tabs for 50 Super Bowls and 50 NBA Finals. It's just
well, let me ask you this. I agree with you, but when it started, it was 1, 12, 15, 18, so it was easy. It wasn't 58, 59, whatever. So I wonder if that's why I remember them better, because there weren't that many to remember than what is now the case.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, it's easier to remember 10 things rather than remember 58 things, right? So, or 20 things rather than 58 things. So, yeah, I definitely think that just brain capacity after a while, you start to just, was that the Patriots that year? Was that and again, you can probably sit there and figure it out ultimately, but it definitely takes a lot longer just because there's a lot more to try and compute. But I used to be able to do that, to the point of WrestleMania. I could do that up until probably in the 20s, and now they're in 40. And I don't know these last few years if I could sit there and peg every single one of them the way I used to be able to do. So, yeah, I think that's just probably naturally getting older.
All right, when we come back, the Hall of Famer John McClain, also Paul's Top 5. Craig's back from practice. We appreciate you. If you haven't, please hit the like and subscribe button. If you haven't also told somebody else about what we do, we would appreciate that And this is
no word on Scott Drew over on campus. I went and snooped around. I went over by his office and all that. No, it was all football over there, and I was curious what the mood was going to be like, but it was just all football, and that's a whole different part of the grouping over there.
I thought I saw him caulking something like at the Foster Pavilion, Paul. He was doing some of the stuff down at the bottom.
Hasn't been into his own offices yet over there. He's
they got work to do.
They got work to do.
They got a lot of work to do. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Bob Mock, the owner. 5 locations in Waco, and it wasn't that long ago there were none. Fastest growing pizza brand in America. Marcos.com is where you can go online. I can go online right now. I guarantee you what you're going to find is that from the top left to all the way to the right, down a little bit, you're going to find specials, discount codes for you to get, for example, a 1 or 2 or 3 topping pizza for a better price than you would if you just ordered it straight up, or like code PEPMAG for Pepperoni Magnifico, the really nice. Magnifico means a ton of pepperoni. Mine, of course, is the pepperoni and sausage, Italian sausage, Magnifico. Bob Mock with 5 locations. Fastest growing brand, I've mentioned that. Marco's Pizza with pizzas, sandwiches, wings, salads, drinks, and more. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
It's Dodge Power Shot Days at Allen Samuels in Waco. Experience the adrenaline-pumping performance and cutting-edge technology of Dodge. From the sleek and stylish 2023 Charger to the performance and muscle of a Challenger to the bold and rugged Durango. During Dodge Power Shot Days, we're offering amazing deals and special incentives that will make driving a new Dodge even more exhilarating. Don't miss out on these exclusive savings. Visit Allen Samuels in Waco today and unleash the power of Dodge.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Are you ready to elevate your Waco experience to a whole new level? Look no further than the Baylor Club, where you can indulge in one-of-a-kind luxury and unwind in our exclusive lounge area. Located in the heart of McLean Stadium, this elite club offers 5-star member atmosphere for all your work and play needs. With a master culinary team and outstanding hospitality, we take pampering to a whole new level. Weddings, milestones, businesses, and birthdays. A stadium roaring with Bear spirit featuring stunning city skyline views. The Baylor Club truly has it all. The Baylor Club is the destination for Baylor basketball pregame meals, beverages with this special membership offer. If you mention Sikkim 365 or 365 Sports Radio, just ask for John or Devin for details. For interest in membership or your next private event, call 254-710-8080 or Google Baylor Club Linktree for more information on menus, calendars, upcoming special events. Say yes to the Baylor Club today. 254-710-8080 or Google Baylor Club Linktree.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing his time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Hall of Famer, columnist John McClain with us on 365 Sports. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and I'm David Smoak. John, we were talking about this young man who's been at Georgia and USC. Amazing talent in Bear Alexander. I don't know down the road if he's even going to be a part of an NFL combine. Can you imagine he's been to 7 schools in 6 years, 5 high schools in 4? Can you imagine being able to record the questions NFL teams would be asking him at the combine?
It would be unbelievable because I can't imagine anybody done that. If you can play, if they think you can play, it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter how many schools you've been to, but obviously he would have a lot of explaining to do.
Explaining, I like it. Paul?
John, as we near the draft, do you think things are becoming clear what's going to happen after Caleb Williams, or is it just as muddy as it was, say, a week ago?
Well, just as muddy as it was a week ago. We know it's going to be Caleb Williams. We don't know what order the other quarterbacks are going to go in. We don't know how many teams are going to try to trade up. But that's what makes it so interesting. I wish they just go ahead and sign Caleb Williams. You can do that if you want to do it, but they're going to sit there when the first day of the draft on the 25th, and they're going to delay that first pick just so they can talk more about Caleb Williams and the Bears instead of just getting it out of the way and then moving on to the mystery.
John, as Commanders fans, it's excruciating to know that Caleb Williams is going 1, and then it's great, like they've got this option of all the other guys, but it's also dreadful knowing what the Commanders have done with their quarterback picks in the past and how that's gone sideways. So based on just kind of what you hear, is there any kind of separator you feel like between a Drake May, between a Jaden Daniels? I guess those two being the main possibilities there at number 2?
Craig, most people are saying it's going to be Daniels because of Cliff Kingsbury. If you look at Kingsbury, when he was at Arizona, he got them to draft Kyler Murray first overall. First thing you think about Murray is mobility. Now, you got Jaden Daniels, who's a lot bigger and just as fast, maybe not as quick because Murray is small. I don't know, maybe Michael Vick, that I've ever seen a quarterback quicker than he is. And he might just have a bigger version of Kyler Murray. So if indeed he's influential, and I'm sure guessing he is, since Dan Quinn is a former defensive coordinator, as a head coach, and they're going to listen to him. And I think because Daniel's such an exciting player, but I'm guessing they're going with him because of Kingsbury's history of quarterbacks.
John, who do you think the Texans now at 42? You mentioned defensive end. Have you got kind of an idea of like the guys they might look at now that they're out of the first round completely?
Yeah, they got 9 picks overall. They got 2 2s, 1, 2 4, 2 6s, and 2 7. And with those 2 2s, they need a corner and they need a defensive tackle. Whether it's a defensive tackle first or if it's a corner first, I don't know. Braden Fiske, defensive tackle from Florida State. I'd love to see them get him there. And I've been thinking about Devondre Sweat. And Sweat is, boy, you talk about bad timing to be stupid. You know, it's one thing if he's going to eat himself out of the league, which people worry about. And he's got a reputation. He's a great talent. But if he was 340 instead of 366, he'd be a first-round pick. And now, to get in Iraq and then get DWI, that he's going to – you talk about having a lot of splaining to do. He's got a lot of splaining to do. If he was 340 and had stayed out of trouble, he'd be a first-round pick. He'd go before Byron Murphy, who's now going to go way before him. And I don't think that his problem – one of the things people are going to have to rush to is find out Does he have a drinking problem? Does he have a partying problem? They should have known that before. And could it cost him some spots and some money? Yeah, but he ought to be highly motivated when he gets on the field.
John, the Cowboys are at 24. They have this, this offseason that Jerry very much misspoke when he said he was going all in, because he gave a lot of people false hope and they didn't have the mathematics to go all in. Is this a draft where they should strongly consider trading back and getting more draft picks, because they've got to fill their roster and the salary cap problems don't stop next year, even if they do sign Dak to an extension?
Well, first of all, we know what he's been doing during free agency. He's been helping lure John Calipari from Kentucky to Arkansas.
Yeah.
Now, if he's done Cowboy stuff as well as he's have to do that, then everyone be really fired up about the Cowboys. They're going to get Dak extended. They're going to get Parsons, and they're going to get CJ. It's like when they had Aikman and Smith and Irvin. They kept redoing it, pushing the cap down the road because they had 3 stars on offense. And then at some point, the piper will have to be paid. You hope that the Cowboys have had a chance to win another Super Bowl. But CeeDee Lamb, I mispronounced his name, CeeDee Lamb is going to get it, and Parsons will get it. And I can't see them letting Dak walk and starting all over after you have extended the other 2 guys. So I think the Cowboys are going to still be prolific. They're going to be capable of winning 12 games again. But, they suffered some free agent losses. They better have a good draft. And after the draft, they better sweep in there and get a couple of more veteran free agents who thought they were going to make big bucks but are not, and would welcome a chance to come to the Cowboys on a 1-year deal with a chance to make more if you stay on the field and the team is successful.
They had a time there where their offensive line with Frederick, who, of course, ended up with that very unique injury that debilitated him for a while. You have a Hall of Famer in Tyron Smith, a Hall of Famer in Zach Martin. Now you have this kid, Tyler Smith. They've had this run. They've also had cheap quarterbacks for the most part, as far as with Romo and then with Dak. Do teams look at it as if there's a window open and they go for it and then they realize the window's closed? Do they just say, screw it, let's forge through it? Or do they have to go back and say, we got to take a beating for a couple of years?
David, we've talked about this before. Do we see Jerry Jones willing at his age to take a beating? Jerry's very, very competitive. He wants to win another Super Bowl that's not related to Jimmy Johnson, whether Jimmy won 2 or Switzer won 1 with Jimmy's players. He wants to win another one. And I don't see him at his age saying, okay, we're going to suffer through 2 or 3 years. Look what happened to the Texans. It's 3 bad years. Sometimes it's even worse. Sometimes you get bad and you stay bad. And it necessitates a lot of changes. So I think they will keep pushing the cap down the road. At some point, maybe after Jerry dies, who knows how long he's going to live, then they're going to have to redo it. The key is you've got to have a quarterback. Getting Romo, who was undrafted, and then getting Dak in the 4th round. And, will they get the hat trick of quarterbacks like that? I don't think so. They may, you don't have to get them at the top of the draft. There's other moves they made. Look at Lamar Jackson. And so you just got to know what you're doing. And I think with Will McClay, if they're listening to him, he's a great personnel man, then they'll have a chance when they need a quarterback to get a good one. It just won't be up the top 2 or 3 picks.
John McClain with us, Hall of Fame columnist on the NFL, the draft later on this month, and specific stories around the league.
John, would you like to send a message to Scott Drew regarding Kentucky's interest in him?
Yeah, first of all, I was up there for the eclipse yesterday. Lester's had my best friend and I. We went out to the dam. We were out there with his sister. And we went out there. It has a great spot close to the airport. And it was fantastic. And, of course, we got to go over to Georgia. And so we left at 4:15, figured we'd be back by the start of the Astros at 7, and then have plenty of time to watch the basketball. And we got back at 9:45. All the times I've been between Waco and Houston, 5 hours and 45 minutes. Worst traffic I've ever seen. Anyway, back to Scott. I do not see, and you guys know him. If he turns down Louisville and gives his word that he is coming back for another raise, an extension, and he's got his dream home, I've heard, about to be built, would he turn right around and go to Kentucky? He stays in Waco. Scott is a god forever. No pressure at all. Great recruiting classes. New building he helped build. I think him, and this is blasphemous, of course, they should build statues of Scott Drew and Kim Mulkey outside the arena. It's like I still think they need a statue of Singletary out there with RG3. But I just don't see Scott turning around after he gave his word, his handshake, and taking off for Kentucky where there's more pressure in any program in college basketball.
He has a top 5 salary. Now, again, salaries change during the offseason. He has a top 5 assistant coaching staff budget and a top 5 NIL budget that he's had to do most of that, but Baylor then amped that up because of Louisville, et cetera. And by the way, a brand new facility that it was kind of like his name is on it without his name being on it. So he would get an extra $1 million or $2 million at Kentucky, if maybe $2 or $3 million, but at the same time, is that worth the extra scrutiny at a place that runs people off? Even Tubby Smith got run off. So I don't see it happening, but who knows?
If he takes it, David, we will all wish him the very best.
Absolutely.
Because he did the best coaching job in the history of college basketball when he came to Waco. But if you want to be the best and you want to run with the big dogs, you got to pay with the big dogs, and Baylor has always done that with Scott. And I just can't imagine what else does he need. He's got his building. He's got his best recruiting class ever coming in. Players want to go there and play. And if he does, more power to him. But I don't think anybody sees Scott doing that.
I asked a Baylor administrator about whether Nate Oates would put out a statement or whoever, would Scott need to do that? And they said, if you're a guy that's been a coach that's left every 3 or 4 years, probably you want to kind of calm the tide. But when you've had somebody who's been here through what he's been through in 21 years, he doesn't need to put out a statement, although I'm sure the fan base would love to see it. But that was also something that was mentioned, which I thought made a lot of sense.
What did they do after Louisville? Did they put out a statement?
No. He was on our show, made a comment. It was kind of a generic comment. So no matter what he would have said, he said he's there forever, Livingstone, Mac, etc. And then people say, yeah, but he never said no, which he apparently never was either. He did say no because he's still a part of Baylor. Whether or not Kentucky's a different animal or not remains to be seen.
Unless he's always had a dream of coaching at the University of Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And if there's another school he'd rather go to, he could probably do it. So, of course, we all hope he doesn't. But if he does, boy, wish him the very best because he would need it, considering everything that's gone on at Kentucky. I don't think it's the premier job anymore. UConn is the premier job, and Danny Early's already turned it down. So, if you leave Kentucky to go to Arkansas, that Kentucky job not real good.
Thank you very much. That Arkansas money is huge. That's John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, with us on 365 Sports.
There is one thing that I've thought about with Scott Drew, and I'm sure he could acclimate just about anywhere just fine. I'm not worried about him handling the pressure of Kentucky. I just don't know if it's worth it for him. Maybe it is, and that's ultimately what he decides, but just his personality, I don't see that going over well with Kentucky fans the way that it goes over here. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. The whole it's just nice guy stuff.
It's a state university,
right?
And sometimes there are some in that environment that don't want to hear all that.
It's not even about the Jesus stuff. It's not even about the joy and his beliefs. You're certainly not going to highlight those as much as you would at Baylor, but I don't think people in Kentucky are godless. I think there's a lot of Southern Baptists probably at Kentucky. I'm just saying more or less just I just don't feel like he fits there, his personality, especially in comparison to a Calipari. I just feel like Scott Drew's a totally different kind of guy. Am I tripping here? I mean,
no, you're not. I mean, there are certain
he can
places that can eat you alive, even if you're successful and you don't have enemies.
I just don't see him going to the podium and be like, hey, everybody, guys, it doesn't seem like that's a Kentucky guy. I don't know. I'm just maybe talking to myself here, but I don't know. I feel like his shtick, which is not a shtick in a negative way, it's just not what I would think of for Kentucky basketball. And if you're losing, I don't see that going over well at all. His positivity, but maybe that's what they need is a dose of positivity and less of a mercenary type.
I had somebody send me a note. They go, what about if Scott starts to not have success? Oh, no, all bets are off. I mean, I don't care.
That's part of the risk, yeah.
That's what's going on with Calipari.
Well, Calipari...
He won a national title.
Calipari didn't get the job because the guy before him was kicking ass. I mean,
Well, was it Tubby?
No, it was Gillespie.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that was a disaster. Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, that's the thing is that, they didn't give Billy Gillespie long, and because he didn't win, and he tailed off real fast. And, Scott's a much better coach than Billy Gillespie is, and much more successful by every single metric. It's just that's a different kind of place, and
I just don't see Jesus others yourself going over like huge unless you're winning major.
And look, Mitch Barnhart likes that.
Right. Yeah.
But Mitch Barnhart, like Ashley said yesterday, is 65 years old.
Right, yeah.
And look, while Kentucky is a very Bible Belt type state, the thing is that the Church of Kentucky is that basketball team.
Right.
And, when I feel we had a successful year because of this, they're going to be like, yeah, no, we have a successful year when we're in the Final Four. So
yeah. I think that's what's interesting about this is there's a dozen reasons. I mean, and I'm maybe limited it why Kentucky makes perfect sense and why that would want to be a challenge he would want to take on and maybe a thing to mark off in his career coaching at a school like that. And there's also a dozen reasons to say he's perfectly fine where he is and can continue to build the arena that he helped build and all of the other things that he's accomplished where it really truly is his program and he's not the next – Tubby, Calipari, whoever, Auerbach, so on and so forth. But we don't know what Scott Drew's thinking. And you know what? So it all come down is like the Louisville thing of like, in this case, though, the job is a better job, like top to bottom.
Right.
Whereas Louisville, debatable. But, yeah, it's all just going to come down to Scott Drew's preference and what he wants for the rest of his career and what kind of challenge he wants to take on. And there's still plenty of challenges here, but, I mean, like we've all said, we totally get it. I mean, this is not one of those situations where you're like, I can't believe you would do this. Yeah, we could all believe it if you make that choice, and we could all believe it if he were to turn down Kentucky because he turned down pretty much everybody else at this point.
If he doesn't go to Kentucky, I'll go, okay. If he goes to Kentucky, damn it, but it's because we want him around. We love the guy.
Yeah, if he doesn't go to Kentucky, then the only jobs that would ever startle you again would be like UConn, like we were talking about earlier, North Carolina, UConn, Kansas. That's about it.
Kentucky is, yes.
And even then, that would be low percentage because he'd already turned down to Kentucky.
Kentucky is not far from where he grew up.
I actually think like if Kansas and Kentucky were open at the same time, he would take Kansas over Kentucky just because he likes that venue so much more. But I mean, if he was going to leave,
not that the Rupp Arena is
no. It's just like, it's absolutely not. But hey, somebody was complaining about it a couple years ago, was he not?
Yeah.
And he's not the coach there anymore. So,
so here's a couple of things. Ashley Hodges posted another update. One of the reasons to be a member of SicEm365.com. I'm not going to give out the information. I'm not doing that. But he posted something new at 5:35 in the forums in a thread about Scott Drew. But one thing that when I talked to him earlier and texted him back and forth and asked him about, one of the things that people bring up is family. Can you imagine, let's say you don't like him, and then you're Mitch Barnhart, or you don't know much about him, and you spend 3 weeks with him in the bubble of Indianapolis, and you get blown away by him. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that Scott – you think of him as, oh, geez, he's this nice guy. He's an incredibly competitive person that checks every box of what needs to be done in the prep and et cetera. I'm sure he can pretty much convince anybody what he wants to convince him of, not in an evil way, but in a way that he feels like this is what makes sense, this is what we're going to do, whether it's staying at Baylor or moving on to somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a lot more what's the right word here? I think he's a lot tougher than people realize.
Absolutely,
I think you don't realize.
Don't misguide that. Yeah.
Don't think he's not going to bring a knife to a knife fight. You know what I mean? Like he's going to be prepared, and he's going to be.
He might tell you he has the knife though.
Yeah, he might be like, "Hey, I don't really want to do this, but if you're forcing my hand, like let's go." That's who I kind of think of Scott Drew. Like he's not going to back down from anything or be scared of the pressure at Kentucky. It's just a matter of, does he want to take on that pressure? That's it. He's not scared of any aspect of this. He's not scared of the shadow of any former coaches. He's not scared of competing wherever that may be. He's not scared of the pressure. It's just a matter of, is that what he wants next in his career? And there's obviously a lot of enticing things, and that Barnhart bubble experience obviously is a huge factor here, because otherwise we're not talking about this probably the way that we are talking about it.
If you are Kentucky and you don't put the full court press on him, Dan Hurley, or whoever else, you're not doing your job.
No, of course not.
All right. When we come back, Paul Catalina and the top 5. Real quickly, Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills and Richland Drive in Waco. They have this product called Vita Dreams. It's a CBD product. It's gummies. And if you do struggle at times going to sleep, tossing and turning, and even if there's not a lot in your mind, or maybe there is, the CBD product, the gummies, can help you get just to a point where you fall asleep and you don't lose 35 minutes or 53 minutes or 2 hours. Because there's nothing worse than not being able to fall asleep and you got to get up the next day and you're exhausted. Also, they have a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the great brands and cigars from Rocky Patel, my favorite, to Padron, Cohiba, Macanudo, H. Upman. You say it, they have it. Romeo and Julieta, yes, keep on going, they have it. Arturo Fuente. Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans with Cheyenne, Ashley, and Carol. Experts in the cigar business and more. In between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in the Town West Shopping Center in Waco.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 fits for Damian Martinez. And a tip of the cap today to Chris Hummer from 24/7 Sports, who we've had on the show before. One of the best when it comes to reporting on the portal. He put up a list of Power 4 teams and what they need in the portal today. Now, look, this doesn't mean that some of these teams don't need a Damian Martinez, but as far as contending teams or teams that he has a connection to, these are the ones that would fit him most, especially ones with need at running back. Number 5, Kentucky needs a running back. Look, they've got a transfer quarterback. They've gone to transfer receivers. They had Ray Davis last year, who was a transfer running back. So would not surprise me to see them go in for Damian Martinez. He could fill that void that Ray Davis left in that offense with Liam Cohen coming back and Vandegrift, the quarterback who came in from Georgia, would be an interesting pairing there and would take a lot of pressure off of Vandegrift to be so good right away if you have a running back like Martinez.
Yeah, I mean, I could see him playing in the SEC and doing just fine for himself. I did go and look while I was away, and I do think this kind of caught some people off guard the way I expected it probably did with Damian Martinez. Maybe there was more heads up on the Beavers boards, but it did seem like it was pretty unexpected. So, yeah, I mean, it's always going to be a draw to play. I think in the SEC, Kentucky's a really solid program there with Mark Stoops. You outlined why that would be a fit with Ray Davis moving on. So, yeah, man, Kentucky's just got a plethora of options this week of possibilities. But yeah, that would make sense for them.
Number 4, Michigan State, Jonathan Smith. Duh. Like, I really don't need to say anything more about this one. Yep. That's his old coach right there at Michigan State. I put this at a little less likely just given the fact that he would probably buy into Jonathan Smith more than any others, but Jonathan Smith has a bit of a rebuild to do there. But, look, the best player they've had in the last couple of years is a transfer running back, in Kenneth Walker. So it wouldn't surprise me to see, having the backing from the NIL to go get who was his best player last year. So, again, would not shock me to see Michigan State because of the familiarity.
Yeah, I mean, he fits that offense. He fits exactly and knows exactly what they want to do, how they want to do it, and what they want from him. So, yeah, this is a no-brainer. I mean, this probably should – I mean, it's your list, but, I mean, if this was number one, I wouldn't have blinked twice at it just because of the Jonathan Smith connection, Aiden Childs, et cetera.
When you see the top three, you'll see why I'm saying this, because this is going to get financial.
But yeah,
in
this
a
is
second.
this is the obvious choice because of the connections of a likely landing spot for him for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 3, Tennessee. Jalen Wright, running back, gone. Actually led the nation in yards per carry last year, kind of quietly, I guess, given the fact that Tennessee didn't hit all their marks. But look, you've got a young quarterback coming in Nico Amaliava. Again, just like the Kentucky logic, why not give him a steady Eddie running back like Damian Martinez? And we know that the Tennessee NIL Collective will go to all lengths, including fighting the NCAA in federal court to make sure their NIL is tip-top.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that with old Nico there. First, that was the first one of the first examples of just kind of seeing, people were going to take it into their own hands, and that was one of the first big splashes, I guess, along with Jaden Rashada and I guess various others.
Quinn Ewers,
yeah, I was just thinking about him, yeah. But Tennessee, what an offense to play in. Josh Heupel and company do a tremendous job. They had a step back last year, and by step back, it was still a pretty good season. It was just not as great as the year prior, but they're on a good trajectory right now. A lot of excitement, and I could see why it wouldn't take much to convince you to want to go play in Knoxville and play in Neyland and be a part of what they've got going tradition-wise. So, yeah, Tennessee would be a very interesting spot for him.
Number 2, Miami. Again, they don't really have an established running back. They just went out and got Cam Ward. And, what better way to make your offense even more dynamic by going out and getting Damian Martinez, who's currently the best player available in the portal at all at any position. And look, I say available in the portal, that comes technically in a week. Or so.
Well, in the next 5 minutes, that could change too.
Yeah, the NCAA, the portal kit is open all the time, and the school you're leaving has to pay for your flight. But yeah, Miami is an interesting fit because, again, they're pushing some chips in the middle of the table to see some success in year 3 under Mario Cristobal, a little bit more than they have so far. And I think he and Cam Ward would kind of be a fun pair, as much as it would hurt me in the pit of my stomach to see another good player go to Miami. But Mario Cristobal needs to start seeing some results. So not because I think he's in trouble, just because I think he needs to be able to sell it to people a little bit better that this is going to work outside the program, including those recruits.
Yeah, I mean, they've had some tough moments. They've had some moments where you're like, okay, this thing's going right. And then there's some times where you're like, oh, God, is this ever going to get back on track? But, talk about a team, too, that's got the added sort of, this isn't going to affect them. Well, I guess we are several months away. I mean, we should have some sort of clarity on the ACC's future, I would hope, by this summer, as far as having a better idea of sort of what to expect. But then again, I don't know. But Miami's also, kind of in a weird spot of do they have a place at the top level, or are they kind of settling back into a different world? But one way to cure all your ails would be to win big. And so, yeah, they're banking on Cam Ward, providing a big boost for them, going and grabbing another, highly touted Pac-12 standout from the Northwest, I think would be a good combination. I mean, Damian Martinez is not a guy that's just a game breaker type, but he is a very good physical running back, and yeah, he can pile up the yardage. So Miami would make sense.
And number 1, missing Quinshawn Judkins and the self-described portal king himself, Ole Miss. This would be maybe not a complete, I would take Quinshawn Judkins over Damian Martinez,
yeah, for sure.
But if my consolation prize is Damian Martinez, I'm not that sad. That's just, he's a really, really good player. We know that. And Ole Miss is going for it. 12-team playoff first year. You've seen the NIL dollars they've put out so far, the guys they've gone and gotten on both sides of the ball. But They need a running back, and this would kind of cement them as a, even more of a real contender to not only be in the playoff, but with a returning quarterback and all that, contend to maybe win the SEC, which is not something that happened a whole lot at Ole Miss in their history.
Wasn't it just a year or so ago when they seemed to have 5 quality running backs at one point on their roster?
Yeah, but Quinshon Judkins left.
Well, whatever happened to Evans? Did he just run out of eligibility? The kid from TCU?
He went to the NFL.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think right now Logan Diggs is hurt, so there's a need more so than there was, when spring started, so to say. So yeah, I don't know the extent of that injury. I just remember catching that the other day. So there was a headline about them, seeking running back help. So because of that, yeah, Ole Miss would make a lot of sense. We know the baseline is $400,000, guys, right? Isn't that what we got by whoever put out that information? Clearly from somebody very bitter at Oregon State wanted to pass along that information. That wasn't, I don't think, Damian Martinez's side of things of like, yeah, starting bid at $400,000. But Ole Miss, because of what they've shown through their collective and the way they've gone for it this offseason, as you mentioned, and a needed running back, yeah, they would definitely fit the bill and could foot the bill of Damian Martinez, his services for sure.
According to this, Jack just sent me this. According to Keith Taylor, who is the sports editor, University of Kentucky beat writer at Kentucky Today and the Berea Citizen, he says that Scott Drew has been offered the job at Kentucky. Now we wait.
Yeah, I mean, we're all expecting that.
Yeah.
That is news, don't get me wrong, yeah. But I think we were expecting that to be the case, so now it's good to know that is the case. So, yeah, it's his job to take or to leave, and so here we go for the final stretch of what is a very important decision for a lot of people, including the most decorated basketball program in history and a place here that this man built from ashes. I mean, so yeah, this is going to be a very nervous night for a lot of people.
But imagine the brass ones to be able to say no.
Oh my God, dude! If you say that's the thing is like with Nate Oates at Alabama, what's he going to go use on the recruiting trail now? Like I turned down the Kentucky job. I don't know if you were ever offered it, but you can say that. And so yeah, Scott Drew. I mean, he already recruits really, really well. I don't think that would be an adjustment for him at Kentucky, but to sit there and really plant the flag for Baylor, yeah, this would be his and his alone and all him and all that, yeah.
This is where Foster Pavilion better pay off for Baylor, because had that not happened, and he was still in the Farrell Center,
with no
home court advantage,
no rebar or whatever,
no reverb, none of that stuff. Then
rebar, I guess there's some of that too.
Yeah, but then it would be like, all right, well, it was a nice run with Coach Drew. See ya, but we don't know. We'll see what happens.
He finally has a home court advantage for the first time truly in his career, basically.
And to leave that after not even a full season, just the conference season of it, to me, just after all he's built, would seem to be a little bit not in his personality.
Again, it's not going to be, in my opinion, if there's any financial figure it comes down to, it's not going to be the money offered on his contract unless they just offered him $20 million a year, which would be insane, and they wouldn't do that. It would possibly be the NIL offerings. Even then, I think he's pretty well taken care of based on the NBA players that they've had roll through the program. I don't think that they're suffering there. So again, to me, it's just one of those of do you just want to take is it burning inside of you to go take on the challenge of trying to take Kentucky to the mountaintop and be one of those in a long lineage of guys who have, been Mr. Kentucky basketball and brought championships to a rabid fan base. If that's in him, then he'll take that job. If it's not, then he's going to be at Baylor and continue building on the Hall of Fame career that he's already built for himself. And obviously we hope he stays here, but we understand that it's a big decision.
By the way, congratulations to Davis Wenzel, former Baylor player who was brought up by the Rangers, already on that team. Cody Bradford, the pitcher who was a part of the World Series team. That's a pretty good reunion there. Up in Arlington, the Astros winning 2 of the last 4, beating the Rangers up the last couple of nights, or especially last night, 10-5. All right, Emery Winter, thank you. Jack McKenzie, thank you. Emery's working on 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 on the local CW. Garrett Ross weaving with that Washington Nationals or old Washington Senators?
Nationals.
That same beautiful W that the Senators had before they moved to Arlington. For Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, for our sponsors, for those of you in the chat, those of you watching or listening, wherever you do, even in the app, I'm David Smoak. Good night, 365 Sports.